Good evening and welcome to the July regular meeting of the Colonial Beach Town Council. I would ask that if you have some type of device that makes a noise, please turn it off now. Thank you. As you can see, all the council members are here today. And as we normally do in our regular meetings, we stand and have a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Alger?
Aye.
Mr. Lyburn?
Aye.
Mr. Lehman?
Aye.
Mr. Serby?
Aye.
Mr. Geller?
Aye.
Mr. Rogers?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Is there a motion to approve the minutes for the June 20th, 2018 regular meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second. No.
I'm sorry.
I asked that you deferred me.
Okay, gotcha. No problem. Thank you. Okay, item 6 is council announcements. We'll start at the right, Mr. Alger.
I just wanted to thank Kathy and everybody else that was involved with updating our microphones. If you notice now, the microphones at the desk and also up there at the podium are all wired, so now we don't have to worry about if it's going to go in or out, and you don't have to worry about if you're not going to be heard or not. So I want to thank Kathy and everybody else involved with that.
Thank you. Burkett?
I just want to thank everybody for the 4th of July. We had a lot of people. It was crowded. Everybody was kind of well behaved. We had some incidents on the boardwalk that the police department took care of real quickly. And you just want to thank you for your diligence and being patient with the number of people that we had in town. I just want to thank you very much for your patience.
Thank you. Mr. Lehman?
Mr. Mayor, the same sentiment for Public Works. We had a heck of a mess to clean up, and it was cleaned up promptly. And I understand we had to complain about the restrooms down at the point, and that has since been taken care of. Rob, if you will share that with your folks that worked hard that holiday to make a shine.
Thank you, Mr. Lehman. Mr. Serby? Bill?
Yeah, I would like to echo the sentiments of the 4th. It was a very good email, Quinn, that you shared with us. It was very encouraging. You and Public Works managed to convince the lady from I'm going to explore other places to visit to I'm going to come to Colonial Beach forever. So thank you very much for that. The second thing is I still think we need to have we received a lessons learned packet, Quinn, from you at our work session, and I would like to have further discussions on that at our next work session, if that's possible.
Certainly.
I also, in my capacity as liaison planning and zoning, met with Allison last week, and she will be reviewing our current building and permit fee schedule to be sure our rates are up to date and reasonable. Work on this initiative should begin in earnest next week. Now, while I was there, Mr. Serby was there as well. And I witnessed a conversation between Allison and Mr. Serby. And Allison would start the sentence, Steve would finish it, Steve would start a sentence, Allison would finish it, and a light bulb came on in my head. And the light bulb was, Steve would be a perfect liaison for planning and zoning. I mean, he's got all the skills required. He knows the code. Granted, there were issues in the past that prevented that from happening. So I would like us to consider that at some point, not here necessarily, but just put that bug in everybody's ear as a possible it's a good fit. It falls right in Steve's wheelhouse, I think, and it would free me up to do something else, whatever you see fit. So it's just a thought. Finally, I had the opportunity to review the Avenue agreement that was received at our work session on Saturday, and I forwarded those recommendations on to Andre and Quinn via email on Monday. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Ryan?
Yes, I'd just like to echo Mr. Lyburn and Mr. Lehman's comments on how things were handled the past couple of weeks with the full house we had here in town. I felt everything went rather smoothly.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Likewise, I don't know if there's enough credit that could be passed around, quite frankly. We had a lot of people in town for the 4th of July. And some of the older folks have been here a lot longer than I have, said it was the biggest they'd ever seen. So I'd like to start with thanking the town manager as well, who was, if you didn't see him, he was down parking cars in the lot. We had a little snafu, but we worked through it. He was down there for several hours helping with that process as well. And kudos to the police for dealing with a couple of little things, issues we had, but mainly, I couldn't believe how quickly you got people out of town. I know it seemed like forever if you were at the end of the line, but compared to previous years, that was something. Public Works, July 5th, the tractor was on the beach cleaning it, and people were back at the beach July 5th. And it was pretty darn crowded on the 5th as well. I'd also like to thank the citizens for being so patient with the extra large crowd that we had in town. And I actually got to thank most of the tourists for behaving themselves and coming in town and enjoying the fireworks and the beach as well. And also I'd like to echo Mr. Alger's compliments to Kathy for getting this. I think we've got the system mostly figured out. We've come a long way, baby, as they say, with all this and the screens and the communication system now. So thank you very much. And I think we also owe Steve Madden a debt. Yeah, Steve Warner for helping us with this as well. So thank you very much to all those folks. Next on the list is item 7, which is presentations. And first on the agenda is the school board, Pono Beach Schools. So if you, Mr. Tripp, I see you're here. If you'd like to maybe make an introduction of the new superintendent as well. Okay.
No,
You can do it collectively.
you want to meet him first?
All of it. Yeah, sure. Please. We'd love to. Yeah.
I'll talk after you finish.
I don't think you need to worry about that.
The microphone that has to come clear down here and then it'll have to go clear up there. I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce you Mr. Deshaun Turner, Superintendent of Colonial Beach Schools. He began July 1 technically, but he was in there a whole lot working with Dr. Newman before that. He comes to us from King George. Yes, we stole another one. And we're very, very pleased and happy that he's with us. So, Mr. Turner.
How you guys doing tonight?
Oh, great, thank you.
Well, I'm just really eager and looking forward to working with you all in the community on providing a great service to the school division, to the school community. Really happy about that, and I look forward to talking with you at some point and meeting with the mayor. I've already had some conversations with the town manager, and if there's any of the anybody from the council that would like to sit down and speak with me, I'll be more than happy to have that conversation with you, okay? My door is always open. You can feel free to call me, okay? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Town Council. He's a big guy too, so maybe I need him to stand up there beside me tonight. I kind of hate to come to this forum tonight to do this, but I don't see any other way around it. So what I need to bring to your attention is, first of all, that our checks aren't being signed by the town manager or the treasurer. And we can't allow that to go on. And he did inform me this week that he works for all 7 of you, so I feel like that I don't know whether all 7 of you directed him to do that or the town treasurer, how that came about. But I asked Mr. Alger to provide you the laws tonight. He has a copy of them. The first one will talk about Article 8 of the state constitution that delegates the school board. the authority and supervision of school divisions. It's vested in us by law. And the next thing I'd like to make you aware of is Title 22.1.116 that basically talks about how the funds are supposed to be kept and dispersed. And if I'm not mistaken, you'll see in there that our account is supposed to be separate from all the other town accounts, and it's not. If it is, I'm not aware of it, but what's come to issue in the last couple months is, first of all, we were accused of overspending the construction fund, which was absolutely not accurate. And then the next thing we were told is, oh, now we've discovered that you're $110,000 to the good, and so we want to use that money for an SRO. So I'm not sure what's what, but I'd like to get straight answers. I've asked the mayor to set up a meeting between the whole town council and the school board so we can resolve some of these issues, especially the $338,000 that comes from way back. We've done some research, and now that Ms. Robertson's jogged my memory, I know exactly how that money got there. And who was on the council when that occurred, and it happened back in 2008-9, but I'll be glad to have that discussion with you at another time. But if you look at the code section, it'll talk about separating funds. Point 122 will talk about that the treasurer or designee is charged by law to execute our warrants or our checks, and that's not happening. We've been questioned last time, I guess it was a month ago, we were questioned about signing voided checks. The auditor, I didn't like that either, but the past auditor said that was perfectly okay because it's a check that goes to the state that's directly deposited for payroll taxes and a couple other things, and our former auditor told us that was okay to signify that we've seen that and that we're aware that those funds are going into the state account. So that's how we've been doing it. I have no problem at all changing that. I never liked doing that, but the check is voided. It's voided before it's ever even has my signature on it, or the vice chairman. And we both sign it. We both see it. So since these checks have, and then there was a question about some flowers the next time, and the superintendent has what's called a discretionary fund that authorizes him to honor employees and do things where he can use a certain amount of money to purchase flowers or gifts or things for school personnel, and that's perfectly legal. And once it was brought into question that we were doing something illegal, we contacted the auditor again just to ensure that we wasn't. Then this time there was another issue, and and I directed our attorney today. I know your attorney has contacted our attorney numerous times. We've always paid the bill, but as of today, we can't do that anymore. And she tried to reach out to him today. He called me, and I said, as long as y'all pay the bill, she can talk to him all day long. I have no problem with that at all. But we've paid hundreds of dollars for your attorney to talk to our attorney that came out of our budget. This was with property issues and things that we agreed to and said it was no problem, but we can't continue to absorb those costs. I'd much rather us talk about it and resolve it. But if you look at section 22.1121, this is a legal ramification if he doesn't sign those checks. And I'm hoping that we're not going to have to go to this, but if we have to, we have to, because we can't pay late fees. We've got vendors waiting for their money, and the law, I think, is crystal clear, and our lawyer has advised us that it's pretty clear. So I would ask you to review it. We're charged with that responsibility, not the town council, not the town manager, not the town treasurer. The other issue has been the construction fund and not being able to close that out. And as much as I had told the town manager that I would love to do that, the law prohibits us from doing that. There's some things that we don't have yet. And the law is crystal clear. We messed up a few years ago when we bought a bus, just to give you an example. And we bought it, and it wouldn't be delivered until in the next budget year. And the auditor, we wrote the check, we were holding the check, and the auditor says you can't do that. Whatever you buy in this fiscal year has to stay in this year. So we went to the town and said we didn't know we couldn't do this. We haven't received the bus yet. And the town reappropriated the funds in the following year, which we had in this year, and we moved it, and they agreed to it, and we purchased the bus. So we can't close out that loan until we have received all the items. As much as we've been on the supply company to get them to us, I directed the finance officer, our finance officer today, to cancel the order if we have to, whatever it takes to make this happen. But, the former mayor, former council, we had the best relationship for 4 years. And I'd love to have that relationship with this council and this mayor. But I want to make sure that we're all on the same page, and if it takes a special meeting for us to do that, please make that happen, because we really want you to know anything and everything that you want to know, and we want all of you to know. And I've been at meetings where I didn't get up and say anything, even though I've heard some members say we didn't know anything about this, whether it was the building over there that we signed over to the town or whatever it might have been. But I don't want to take up a lot of your time tonight, but if you've got any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. But I just feel like it's come to the point to where we've got to do something, because we can't have checks laying over there for a week and vendors not being paid.
Hang on 1 second.
Mr. Mayor,
I'm not really totally familiar with all this, so.
I can only speak to two parts, and that is that the town manager did contact me today, said that he had received several checks without any supporting documentation, and inquired whether I would reach out to the school board's attorney, because he had been told by the superintendent that the superintendent had called your attorney and that your attorney had sent some code sections. And I said to the town manager that it was not customary to just sign a check without any documentation. And I then sent the town manager several code sections that talk about the governing body's ability to request documentation from boards, committees, departments, etc. Just like the school board has a fiscal responsibility, so too does the town have a fiscal responsibility. And I think it sounds like something that we just need to get a process straight. I did reach out at the request of the superintendent to Brad and have not received a phone call back. I also contacted the town of West Point to inquire what their practice is. And when they get a request from the school system for payment, the treasurer in West Point does sign it, and there is supporting documentation that accompanies the check. So I think we can probably work this out.
Okay. I hope so. I mean, it's, we're responsible in the law. I think I'm reading it as crystal clear, unless that's,
Sure.
and if not, then we can pursue to the next level to see if we're right or who's right. But I don't want to, I'm just shocked that the town manager's not so busy that he has all this time to be worried about what we're doing, or the treasurer. And I've been dealing with this for a couple months since the new treasurer came. So this didn't just start, and it's not just about this.
Okay,
I just want you to understand that it's a lot of things involved here.
This part, and I think if we can, and I'm happy to talk to the superintendent if you want. Just, I can show you what West Point does, and maybe we can mirror that and go forward.
Well, I would only tell you we're not West Point, and I've been on this board 10 years, and we've provided the checks, and they've been signed without question with the documentation saying what they were for. But the problem I'm seeing is, even if we provide that, he has no authority to question, or neither does the treasurer have authority to question. But that's what it's coming to, telling us you can't do this, you can't void this, this is illegal. I don't want to hear that terminology, because I feel like I'm doing something wrong, and then we got to get a legal opinion.
Right.
That's the bottom line with it.
And Mr. Turbitt, that sounds like a longer conversation that perhaps you and I need to have.
Okay.
I'm only speaking to signing a check without any supporting documentation. That's all.
Yes, ma'am, I understand.
Yeah.
I'd like to respond to your first question. You came up to address the council, asking us as a council to be aware of this, and this is the first I've heard of this, and I don't know. Usually Frank calls if there's an issue. Frank will typically call and give us some feedback and ask for some information ourselves. But this is the first I've heard of this. Now I'm hearing two things. I'm hearing checks are being held for months, and I'm hearing that maybe it was just this week's checks. I'm not sure.
No, it's not for months. It's been going on for about 3 months now, but it's only been like 3 or 4 days.
Okay. But I think, and I don't want to speak for the entire council, but I see everybody here with, questions in their eyes. This is the first I've heard of it. I don't know anything about it. We do need to look into it, and as the council, I don't think that we want to be looked at as totally contradictory to the school board and against the school board as compared to the last council. That's not the issues whatsoever, but we're not aware of it. At least I can honestly say I'm not aware of this at all, Mr. Drew.
And I can honestly say I was not aware of it at all. Frank, were you aware of what was going on?
I know at the end of June, I believe it was, that that's when they had asked to have that special meeting, and I had emailed Eddie in Dallas, and they were in the works of trying to get that done. And so that was
Right,
back
a
on July.
portion of the council again.
So July 2nd is when I sent the email asking if we could set that up. And understandably, we were right at, 4th of July, so Eddie said, it's gonna take a little bit of time to get this straight, but we wanna try to get it done before the end of July, but now we're, three weeks into July, so we're almost there now, so.
Well, and I'm not opposed to it being a month from now, but I just think that there's numerous issues that you want to know about, that we want to tell you about, and that we can resolve. The budget is one of them with the $338,000, the building that we've already signed over, the water tower field. Those are some things that I think we should have all had a conversation about that we haven't. But things have went along. Whether it was with the attorney or the mayor or whoever, things have progressed, and you may not have had no knowledge of any of it or how it progressed. But we had one understanding, and something else happened, and it didn't happen like we thought it was going to happen. And so let's just get on the same page is all I'm asking. I'm not trying to be confrontational. I just want us all to work together to where you understand us and we understand you, and we have a great working relationship.
Well, I think we agree, Mr. Chairman. I think internally amongst the council, we've had some issues with disseminating information amongst us and all being on the same page. So that could be part of the confusion here. So I do sympathize with you.
Okay. So I've given you the law. You can look at it. Your attorney will give you advice on that. But I just wanted to make sure that you did have a copy of what our attorney sent us. And I would like to commend the police chief, the town manager, because I was out there with him for those 7 or 8 hours on that street, and I know how miserable it was. There was several organizations that participated in helping, fire department, rescue squad, different ones. Most of you were out there. It was unbelievable what an outstanding job Public Works did. Law enforcement, it was extremely hot, but boy, it was so orderly and handled so well and professionally, and I think you all need to be commended for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Larry, Westmoreland County Board of County Supervisor.
Thank you. To go along with what was just said, the mayor, I've been here 41 years, something like that, and that was probably the biggest crowd I've seen in an awfully long time for the 4th of July. And everybody did an excellent job. Need to thank the police department, the deputy sheriffs, everybody that helped get people in and out. It was amazing how many people. And the help with the fire department and stuff to get everybody parked and put in the right spot. That was excellent. As you know, I wasn't here last time because I had a knee replacement, so I was on my happy pills, still in the hospital, I think. But that was it. You got a couple of things coming down the pike that you're going to vote on. I think today is the agreement with dispatching, as your work session said. That is the dispatching is for the dispatchers for Colonial Beach, and it's just for the police department. Fire and rescue is already being handled by the county's dispatching. The salary, those are just the salaries for the people that you have 24/7 in that. And I don't believe there's been a year yet that the county has charged you over that amount. I think it's always been under that amount. Whatever it costs for the month, that's what the town gets billed. As on a side note, I appreciate the fact that you're doing this and that you'll approve this, because for us to go back for doing dispatching here, you're looking at over $1 million to outfit the office and stuff with equipment and everything else that's required. So since you raised taxes just a little bit the other month, I'm glad you didn't have to raise it anymore, and I'm sure these people here are happy that you didn't raise it anymore for dispatching, so I appreciate that. As far as the presentation, it'll be August or so when the county administrator gets everything together to present something. I don't know exactly when. He's having some trouble because, as you know, he's trying to distinguish some of the stuff. You end up with like social service. That goes by the zip code 22443. Well, that goes all the way out to Oak Grove. That's not part of the town. So, and some of that is confidential. So he's not allowed some of the information and expenditures, but he's working on that to narrow it down. And as soon as he does, I will be more than happy to tell you, and we'll have a meeting, nice presentation of where your tax dollars go for the county. Okay? If you have any questions or so, maybe I can help you out. Yes, sir.
Yes, I have a couple questions. I guess, I may have missed it in the paper. Is the county raising our taxes as well?
They went up while I was gone 2 cents.
The town's taxes?
Everybody's county taxes went up 2 cents.
So to be clear, the town's portion of the county tax is now 42 cents?
Whatever. I didn't write that down exactly today to tell you that it's 42. Whatever it was 40, it went up 2 cents,
It was
42.
40, so now
Okay.
it's 42.
Okay.
Okay.
You,
And did the county tax go up 2 cents as well for everyone else in the county?
oh yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah. No, they can't do one section of it. It's got to be all or nothing.
Well, the county pays 61, the reason I asked, the county pays 61 cents, as you know, and we pay 40 cents. So I didn't know if that was.
That's because of the school formula.
Okay, I just wanted
2 cents across the board.
I just wanted to be sure.
That's the school formula.
Okay, and the other item I want to bring up, and I hesitate doing it, but I feel like I have to, is the document we have here before us to approve or to ratify today. Once again, Quinn received that document on a Friday. Correct me if I'm wrong, Quinn. I might not have it exactly right. He received that document.
He did receive it on Friday.
Well, he received.
I can help you out, Councilman Deller. I received it on a Tuesday or Wednesday with the due date of signage on Friday. So 2 to 3 days.
That was
Action time.
the county should have picked that up sooner. There's no doubt about that. You should have picked it up as a council too, that agreement was running out. It wasn't like the county was going to drop you and say, we're not doing any 911 calls. That was certainly a thing. But I know personally, I brought it up and gave it to Kathy, and she said at 11 o'clock she was going to meet Quinn and give it to him as soon as it was voted on.
I guess the purpose of all of it is not to point fingers so much, but just see if we can come up with a process whereby, let's say, the town gets an opportunity to review it and sign off on it, and then it goes up to the Board of Supervisors, and you guys do your thing.
On both.
There's no reason.
Both sides. It should have been done months before. I have no problem with that on both sides. Yes.
Will you help us make that happen?
Yes, we'll make sure that that doesn't happen again, and we'll do it a couple of months beforehand so that everybody's aware, and any questions or comments.
And I will tell you, after looking at the document, there's an attachment A referenced in the agreement. It's still not there.
I don't know about that, but I will call and get you one tomorrow.
Do you have it, Quinn?
No, sir.
Well,
Yeah, I've never seen it.
we've signed the document, we're about to ratify it, we don't even know it's an attachment A.
Looks like a call schedule, or the way the verbiage around it, discussing attachment, it seems like it'd be a call schedule.
Okay, I'll make sure we see if I can get a copy of that tomorrow and bring it to you. But it's nothing different than what it was 5 years ago.
No, it is different.
It's different, because the amount's different.
It's
The
less.
amount's different?
Yeah.
How much different? I was told it was the same, so.
Oh, no, it's pretty different.
Okay, I will check on that for you too,
Thank you.
to see who did that. Any other questions?
Mr. Mayor. Larry, I just like to echo what Mr. Deller's put out there. This is not the only thing the county sent up here last minute for me to get a phone call on a Friday afternoon to agree to verbally over the telephone. We have a similar situation with the communications. There's nobody that sits on this council that's gonna look at Bruce and tell him that we're not gonna provide radio coverage for him. The same way with dispatch.
No, and we would have, if you wanted to go 6 months.
Let me
and
just
then cut
make
it,
my
we could do
statement,
that.
Larry. I've asked Quinn to ensure that there's somebody that's monitoring these contracts from here on out, so that we know it's not our responsibility, it's staff's responsibility. But we also know that we've changed a lot of staff in this past year. And I would ask that you go down and tell Mr. Razavi that he needs to get a staff member to monitor this as well. And we need to know about this 6 months before it's out.
I have no problem with that.
Not 3 or 4 days. That's unacceptable.
Well, yes, yeah.
And that's
He
not
says
directed
you set
toward
it up
you.
earlier,
It's
but I made sure it was here because I brought it up personally.
Because you guys, I guarantee you mulled over that document, or somebody did before it was sent up here. And it wasn't done a couple days before Quinn got it.
We voted
However,
on it on
we
Tuesday,
got it.
and I brought it right up.
You're expecting us to enter an agreement with the county for up to 5 years with 3 days advance notice?
What I told you was, we weren't gonna quit making calls, calm down, we weren't gonna stop making 911 calls or anything. You could have said, hey, we need
I
some
know
more
you
time.
wouldn't, because you.
Actually, and I told you at
because
the
the county
beginning,
would be
we
liable.
dropped the ball too by not doing it sooner.
That's what I'm
I'm
asking you.
agreeing
Would
with
you
you.
go back to Norm and say,
Yes, I
hey,
have no
can we get
problem
a
with that.
staff member monitoring these contracts so we don't leave the beach hanging with 3 days of notice
Right.
to rectify a contract?
And you could have taken more time if you needed it. The county wasn't gonna stop making 911 calls here, that was
Thank
for
you, Larry.
sure. Anything else?
Let me know if you find out that, when you're doing your study for the town of Columbia Beach,
Mm-hmm.
if the town is actually on the hook for 75% of the legal system and 75% of the social services.
75%?
Yeah, remember that you were
Yeah.
sat in a meeting with me.
Well,
And,
I'll double check that.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, just let me know.
Okay, anything else?
Right. Thank you.
All right. Can I ask if anybody here's got a little
You have
question?
something to say? You have something to say? Okay, thank you, Larry.
Thank you.
Planning Commission?
Good evening. I'm Pam Tolson, Vice Chair of the Planning Commission. I was asked by Maureen to give you a quick update on several activities that the Planning Commission is working on. First, I was asked to thank you for, at your work session, listing all of the items that are still outstanding, we have finalized recommendations to and are pending to the town council. So we appreciate that you're making note of that and starting to move those forward. Two things that we wanted to bring to your attention. You all received a memo from Maureen as explaining the steps that we are taking to begin the update of the town comprehensive plan. And she forwarded a survey to you asking if you would take the time, and it is going to take a little bit of time, and I know that because the planning commissioners are also filling out this survey. But it's the start for us to get an idea of your priorities versus our priorities, so that we're all on the same page as we move this forward. And then ultimately we'll have the survey ready to distribute in some way to other citizens to weigh in. This is just step one, and I thank you for taking the time to look at it and to fill it out. Bill, is there a question?
No, I don't recall receiving the document.
It was sent back in, I want to say, early June, mid-June. I have a copy of it here.
Yeah, that's
I'll be
all right.
happy.
I'll find it. Thank you.
It's
I got it.
you got it? Okay.
It was in our work session.
Work session.
It was in an envelope or something loosely in the pouch.
Okay, I got a copy of an email addressed to all of us with that attached to it from weeks ago. We were hoping to get these back by the end of the month at the latest, so I appreciate you taking the time to take a look at it and weigh in. I know Steve's got. Yeah. It's important, and I think it'll really help us get.
Do you think you can send it to us electronically? So we can
Send it again?
send it to us electronically so we can respond electronically?
Absolutely.
Ms. Fincham will do that.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Then finally, my apologies for not getting a letter of transmittal to the town staff in time for your work session on another issue, but I do want to bring it to your attention. In December, Dr. Karen Self-Sullivan did a presentation to the Planning Commission on the development of a dog park, and she brought forward several ideas, and I'm just going to read you the top paragraph and the bottom, and then you'll have this letter of transmission in your next work packet. A grant was recently pursued by the Colonial Beach River Dogs organization and coordinated with the town of Colonial Beach. A qualified grant requires an affidavit indicating official approval for the park, guarantee that the money will be spent as requested if awarded, and must include a proposed site design. The grant application was unable to be completed due to the lack of a formal recommendation being agreed upon because the recommendation of the Planning Commission was never forwarded for consideration and the Town Council had not officially voted to approve its development or selected the site for its location. And that all happened because, we all know, because of the changes in staff. The Planning Commission revisited this last month because we had asked Dr. Sullivan to get back to us with information. And it is our recommendation that the Town Council approve the development of a town dog park at either Robin Grove Park or the community center sites, and to work with representatives of River Dogs, the town staff, and the grant writer to prepare one or more grants seeking financial underwriting and its development. And then the letter of transmittal does include more background information for those of you you're not aware of it. And I have sent this to Alice and Kathy. They both have copies of it, and Quinn too. So if you have any questions, again, my apology for it didn't make your docket last Saturday.
Yeah. Mr. Serby?
Can we possibly have a staff recommendation for the next work session?
Sure. And so, can you fit that in?
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Downtown Colonial Beach.
Good evening. Nice to be back, except I lost my script. So I'm Glenda Chiarello. I'm on the board of directors for Downtown Colonial Beach. I wish you had somebody else who could come up first because I have to find it in my email. Forgive me, just give me a minute.
I can have someone come up. Chamber of Commerce?
That would be awesome.
Okay,
Thank you.
No problem.
Hi, Susan Mack with the Chamber. I'm going to name somebody that Glenda knows well. I met with both Eric Nelson and Jim Bell separately, one from the foundation, one from Downtown Colonial Beach, for the express purpose of enhancing the cooperation and the relationships between the groups to better serve the citizens of Colonial Beach. So we're looking forward to really healthy relationships amongst ourselves. I also met with Kiki Apple of Monroe Bay Vineyards to explore a Virginia Tourism Grant, probably for next year, for both the Monroe Bay Vineyards and Monroe's Birthplace, which, as many of you know, is really growing. So this VTC grant would be to advertise and promote those venues. And Kiki is building a straw bale barn that that I think starts this August or September, that will be done next year, that she'll use for weddings. So she'll be promoting weddings in the area as well, which all of this is really positive and good for Colonial Beach. The Chamber of Commerce developed and disseminated a new education curriculum to its members. There are classes that are going to be available in business development, computer management skills, advertising for businesses, tax credits and financial incentives, and website development. There are several classes in each of those areas, and classes will be added as interest and demand requires. And we've already actually added a few more. We're doing some photo editing classes as well. And they'll be taught by people from all over. We've got Jim going to teach a class. We've got Eric going to teach a class. We've got my high school intern who's going to teach a few of the basic computer classes. So we're really excited about providing this. And several of the classes will also be open to the public as well, especially the business development classes, in hopes of getting more business, more people into business in Colonial Beach. Colonial Beach Chamber of Commerce became a sponsor for the Torrey Smith Colonial Beach Rec Park after a unanimous Board of Director approval. In the middle of the year, we added 3 new businesses to our rosters, which is pretty unusual, so we're pretty excited about that. the chamber's gonna be reactivating its membership in the Artisan Trail, and we're going to become members of the Oyster Trail Network. And this affords us the opportunity to have a page on their websites where we'll promote our events as well. So again, it's another venue for getting out the word about the events and whatnot that go on in Colonial Beach. We have also renewed our membership in Virginia Chamber of Commerce. The next Northern Neck Tourism meeting is next Monday, and I'll be attending that, and we'll report out to both our board and to this group from that meeting. We're working on Waterfest and Rod Run, and based on what's going on, we expect bigger and better attendance than before. Father's Day Car Show was bigger than it's ever been, so we expect Rod Run to be a big one too. And Waterfest theme is pirates, mermaids, and castaways, and we're gonna have a pirates and mermaids. We're gonna have a belly dancer there. It's gonna be a lot of fun, a lot of games for the kids, bouncy houses, things like that. And the Rod Run is gonna have a 1950s pinup girl contest. I think they're looking for some judges that don't look creepy. The Bike Fest committee meets this Sunday. We had Art Walk last week, and the Grisevich family was our artist of the month. It was a big show. It might have had something to do with the fact that we were the only ones serving wine that night, but I don't know. We're also looking into some training opportunities for chamber staff. There are a couple of opportunities we've got our eyes on, some free training, so that we better hone our skills so we can serve our membership and whatnot better. And lastly, I'm going to be meeting next week with Stacy Scarabello, who is the marketing manager for the Fleet and Family Readiness Center at Dahlgren. And we're going to be, first, we're going to bring our guides there so that the Ticket and Tourism Office will have our guides available. We're going to talk about establishing transportation from the base to Colonial Beach, especially for our bigger events, that they can get their folks here to attend. And we're going to look into advertising Colonial Beach events in their newsletters and whatnot. And I'll be sending information about our businesses in Colonial Beach that offer military discounts, and they will sporadically advertise those individual businesses as well. And that's all I've got this evening.
Any questions?
I'd just like to say, Susan, I think your involvement, your communication, your outreach has been absolutely superb. You've been doing a great job. Thank you very much.
I just wanted to echo what Mr. Deller said. You're a breath of fresh air for the Chamber of Commerce. I came to meetings before I was elected. And unfortunately, a lot of times we'd only see the chamber come budget time or Bike Fest time. And it's awesome for you to come here and spend your evening with us every time we have a meeting, to let us know the good things that you and the chamber are doing. And again, another applause for you.
Susan, real quick, Captain Mo, who's in charge of the base, has had some conversations, I believe, with Quinn. And prior to that, Kelly from the planning department. So there's already a little bit of synergy with that as far as transportation. He has, I guess, there's a group that comes in every 6 months for training there, and they don't get off the base very often. And he thought it'd be a good idea, as the captain, of putting them on a trolley or something to that effect, and bring them up here. They could spend a day and they get trolleyed back for right reasons. Course. And then number two, are you getting the email? Did you get the email I sent you from the state? They were looking for some numbers about our tourism. I sent it to both you and Quinn.
I did not.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. All right, thank you. Downtown Colonial Beach, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, awesome.
Modern technology has its ups and downs. Okay, let me start over. Good evening, Council. I'm Glenda Churton, Town Manager, and everybody up there.
I'm Glenda Chiarello. I'm on the board of directors of Downtown Colonial Beach, and I've been asked to present tonight to update you on everything that's going on with the organization. To follow up on our report about the flower bed funded by Keep Virginia Beautiful grant, I'm sure that's been brought to your attention in the past. Well, the project is complete. The area is being watered constantly. We have a watering brigade set up now to take care of it. And they're watering the bed twice a week. It's right up there by Wilkerson's, by the Welcome to Colonial Beach sign. We want to thank lots of people, but including Marcia Feldman, Heather Murray, Beth Searfoss, Margaret Jones, Laura Murray, and the board members of DCB for doing the watering, and 2 local neighbors who are contributing water and hoses. Next, we are really hoping that the council will approve the resolution that's on the agenda for this evening to meet the VDOT regulations for hanging decorative banners on Colonial Avenue. This effort has been a model of how the town's nonprofit agencies can work together to do important things for the town by providing groundwork research, preparing paperwork, and supplying the funding needed to bring a beautification project to fruition without relying on taxpayer funding. The decorative banners to go on Colonial Avenue are a collaboration between Downtown Colonial Beach, the Colonial Beach Foundation, and town government. Joyce Gunderson and Kathy Bachman of the foundation have been instrumental in raising the funds needed for the banners. These banners will remain hanging throughout the year and have been designed to promote a range of town attractions that can be enjoyed throughout the year. Arts and music, marinas, shopping and dining, and historic sites, along with the base banners that showcase our beach. We also commend those businesses and organizations along Colonial Avenue who are taking it upon themselves to brighten the appearance of Colonial Avenue with red geraniums, Lenny's with its beautiful hanging baskets, the Fraternal Order of Eagles that is flourishing red geraniums in window boxes, and Four Seasons Florist that's placed their pots of red geraniums for sale in front of their shop. Looking ahead, we are eager to move forward with further efforts to revitalize our downtown and commercial core. We've been asked by other organizations to research certain projects for further collaborative efforts and are exploring work with the Historical Society on how we can highlight and preserve the historical character of downtown and leverage these historical assets for economic development. This is the major focus of the National Trust for Historical Preservation's Main Street program, of which we are an affiliate. It has proven to be one of the most successful economic development programs in the country, which is why we've adopted their approach here in Colonial Beach. We elected our new slate of officers for this coming fiscal year, 2018-19. Jim Bell has been elected president. He's paid his own way to the Virginia Main Street Conference this week, which is why he can't be here this evening. We appreciate town government's base financial support for our organization and the technical assistance they've provided to enable hanging of the decorative banners along Colonial Avenue. We look forward to seeing the trees and other landscaping for Colonial Avenue implemented under the capital improvement plan, which we believe we could also assist in funding. Thank you for the opportunity. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, one other note is I was told, yes, Steve?
Oh, who's doing the bicycle, the painted bicycles that are showing up?
Helen,
Is that part of it?
it's part of the arts.
Arts, okay. And the other question I had is, through the process when you all were designing the banner thing and all that, was there any thought possibly of how we could possibly incorporate that into our Christmas decor as well? Or is there any conflict between them being installed and then our Christmas decorations?
I think those conversations will happen now that we have finally gotten to, it's been a very long process with VDOT. So it seems like a simple thing, but it's taking a really long time
to improve that.
Yeah, so now that we're just about there, once the hardware is up,
it could be used for
we're hoping it'll be in the next few weeks. We're like this close to getting approval Quinn's been working really closely with us to get all the paperwork through and get everything taken care of, and the foundation's been instrumental. But once we get that hardware up, I think then we'll be able to look more closely. I think we already have Christmas banners somewhere in the chamber building, so we might be able to utilize the ones we have, because I've been told years ago there were banners on Colonial Avenue that were around Christmas time.
There's still some hardware on some of the poles. You can actually see.
And the chamber has some too.
Yeah, and one other thing I just wanted to add was I was just told that the foundation spoke, I think they made arrangements with RC, the tree company. Once we get all the approvals and permits in place, they've offered to help us with getting all of the hardware and banners up. So I know Rob will be happy to hear that. Anything else?
It takes a village, that's for sure.
Yes, it does take a village. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Pete, on the Beach Foundation.
I think this presentation by the citizens and the organizations is really a good thing. It's very informative to you all who are sitting in front of me and the citizenry who are behind me. So let me tell you what's happening with the Colonial Beach Foundation. And it turns out there's a lot happening with the Colonial Beach Foundation. There's a lot of activities going on, and I'd like to list those. Monday, July 23rd, through the generosity of citizens and organizations in Colonial Beach, we were able to send 16 of our kids to the 4-H camp this year. This is really a good experience. It has to do with leadership and learning to live and work with other people. And as you well know, for some of these kids, it's the first time that they've ever been away from home that they can manage on their own. So this is an annual thing, and I think it's one of the good things that has happened. Saturday, July 28th, the foundation is co-sponsoring the second annual BAM concert. That is the Beach Arts and Music Mentoring program. And this year, again, it's featuring Tommy True Tone and several local bands. It was a big success last year. It promises to be a lot more fun this year, and of course the money raised will help with the education and recreation of the young people in our community. On August 5th, there'll be the summer monthly Sunday Fun Day on Town Hill. And this also features bands, refreshments, dancing, and other activities. August 11th, the foundation, in coordination with Eric Nelson of Caldwell Bank Relief and Karen Griesevich of the Colonial Beach Outfitters, will have a open-air showing that is Cinema on the Green movie, Tu Wong Fu, Thanks for Everything, Julie Newmar. Anyway, that's a lot of fun. Hopefully the weather will be as good that night as it is today. September 22nd, please plan to attend the Beach Music Festival. Again, this will be on Town Hill, featuring the best beach music and several bands, along with shag dancing and instructions in dancing. Several fundraisers are underway. As Glenda said, we're helping to raise funds for the decorative banners on Colonial Avenue, and we're pleased the way this is going, and we're pleased that you can do your part tonight. Of course, our biggest fundraiser to date is the Torrey Smith Recreation Park, and I can tell you that many of our neighbors and organizations and businesses have already supported this and stepped forward to make significant donations. I can only say that Coach Steve Swope is a tireless fundraiser with this effort, and he's taken it upon his project to get a park such as this for the kids in Colonial Beach to use off school hours. The foundation is now 12 years old. We've proven ourselves to be a stable community foundation and it's a safe way for the community to use their resources through the efforts of the volunteer citizens who sit on the board of the foundation. Thank you very much.
Okay, moving on to,
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
next.
Yes.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, no. Sorry.
And I will be brief. The three of us have concluded that we think the air conditioning is broken, and it's getting hotter in here. So I had intended to give just a very brief first step for talking about kind of the role of the town council and the role of the town manager. I've had conversations with many of you individually, and you have expressed an interest in this area. I will say that Mr. Serby wanted me to read you the entire Title 15.2 of the Code of Virginia. I know you're sad I'm not going to do that. Maybe some other day.
Don't recollect that, but
Well, he wanted me to be very thorough. Do you have that, Cal? Yes. So, all of the powers that lie with the town of Colonial Beach are vested in the mayor and the town council. The mayor is a member, slide number 2, please. The mayor is a member of the town council, and the state law specifically designates that broad grant of authority. I have this later on in the slides, but you all know that Virginia is a Dillon rule state, so you only have that authority that is expressly stated in your charter or expressly given to you by the General Assembly. Next slide. So we have had a period of transition, and I want to kind of bring you back to a panoramic view that the council is responsible for big picture items. You do the budget, you establish community goals and projects, you look at long-term future projects. The smaller, more detail-oriented tasks are what you pay your town manager and staff for. Next slide, please. Oh, I brought my book that the Virginia Municipal League published, and I think some of you might have this. If you don't, I would strongly recommend that Kathy obtain copies for you again. It's the Handbook for Virginia Mayors and Council Members. It's very, very helpful, and I'm quoted from it in this presentation. The primary function of the town council is legislative. You are a policy-making body. So you say what to do, and then Quinn figures out how to do it. Next slide, please. A key part of enacting legislation and setting policy is working together. And I want to say that I think that democracy and citizen representation is something that is not appreciated for being as challenging as it is, particularly on the local level. You know, if you're in Congress or even in the General Assembly and you're a state representative, you can kind of hide behind staff and, you know, you may not live or go to the grocery store where all of your constituents do. When you're on the local level, you can't get gas, you can't get a cup of coffee, you can't go buy that bag of chips without somebody asking you a question. So please know that I appreciate the difficult responsibility that you as elected officials are willing to take on. And without working together, next slide please, you really can't get anything done. your ability to get things done and to shape policy depends on your ability to influence one another. And I've told, I think, many of you many times, this is not to say that you all need to agree. You shouldn't agree. If you were gonna all agree, we would only need one of you. The purpose of having 7 people is to get seven different viewpoints. But the Virginia Municipal League, in this handy little book they put together, one of the things that they point out is to not make it personal, disagree respectfully, listen to the other person's viewpoint, even if you don't agree with it. You know, a lot of times what I find in my work is that people really want to be heard more than anything else. Treating your fellow council members with respect, and also understanding that sometimes it is necessary to compromise. You know, sometimes you may feel very strongly about a particular issue, but unfortunately the majority doesn't see it your way. No matter how long you've talked to them about it, you've not been able to persuade them to see it your way. In that instance, I think that rather than viewing it as a loss or keeping score, you just have to look at it as, well, that's how that one issue went. You guys all succeed or fail together. You're a team. Next slide, please. And then again, just emphasizing that, you know, the role for the council is to set the community's goals and policies. And I think I speak for all of you when I say you're all here for the benefit of the citizens and for this community. I know that. And so I hope that, you know, with presentations like this and maybe some other conversations that we might have the opportunity to have, that, you know, that we can really fine-tune that skill. Next slide. There's no one member of council that has any individual power. The power only exists among and between you. And we talked about the Dillon rule. And then I just included in here, I'm not going to read it to you, this is the state code section that kind of sets out the broad scope of your authority. It's so long I had to put it on 2 slides. 3 slides. The town manager. So this lucky individual over here is your professional administrator. His job, so you guys are the idea people. You say, hey, I want to have a dog park. I'm just picking that example. And he goes back to his desk and figures out the zoning, the cost, the maintenance, the upkeep, any animal laws, and then he brings it back to you in the form of a proposal, or maybe with pros and cons, and maybe any relevant history that might go along with it. That's his job. The other thing that I would add is that his job is to handle citizen complaints. His job is to tell people no, and unfortunately that is necessary some of the time. That is not really your job, and I think that it's important for you to listen to citizens and to always hear citizens, and then to pass it off to staff, because that kind of enables you to stay in your role and enables the town manager to do what you hired him to do, what he went to school to do, and what you paid him to do. He is the chief administrative officer, and I just included here the state code. You know, his job is to make sure that the laws are followed, to make reports as the council wants, to require information and reports from his staff, to make sure that his staff is doing what they need to be doing, of course to give you an annual budget, to execute the budget and make sure that the council stays within the budget, so on and so forth. And then there's the one, my favorite one, perform such other duties as may be prescribed by the governing body. So his job is to make you look good. And his job is to take some of that weight off of your shoulders in terms of perhaps explaining to a citizen or even a group of citizens why something that they may want may not be possible right now. And he's the person that's responsible for responding, one way or the other, good or bad. That's really his role. So I appreciate you taking the time to listen, and I look forward to continuing this conversation on another day when the air conditioning's working. And I'm, of course, happy to answer any questions you have.
Can you just print a PDF and email that to us as well?
Sure.
Kathy? Yes.
Okay.
Happy to.
Yes. And can we put it on the website?
We can. Yes.
Thank you.
One other thing, you also might look at our bylaws, because there are certain things in the bylaws about how the citizens' concerns are funneled into town hall.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
What about responding to individual council member inquiries?
What do you mean?
Well, what responsibility or duty does the town manager have to respond to individual council member inquiries?
I see. That's up to you as a group. He works as you tell him to work. So, the state law gives him some broad categories, but how he does what he's supposed to do is up to you all. And so, that may be a topic for further consideration and discussion, maybe at a work session.
I think that needs to be
Because
presentation.
That's a difficult nut to handle.
It is.
Because, we see things individually, maybe sometimes not collectively, that we would like to have answers to. And, it's not that I'm trying to get into the day-to-day operation of Quinn's World, no. But you see something that is not operating properly, and you want to know why. And if you get a response and you don't feel it's satisfactory, then you drill down a little bit more. Now, and I understand these things take time, but it's also important because it's information, and we can't do our job without good information.
I would agree with that, and along with that, I would say, and I know that probably all of you have mentioned this at one time or another, that the transparency in what occurs is very, very important. I know I've talked with the town manager about that, and that we've really made that, or tried to make it a focus of what we're doing going forward, so that citizens are more informed, that there's a greater understanding of what's happening and why it's happening. Part of what I'm doing, and I view this as a transition period, because I do recognize that there were things done in the past that maybe were not done as well as they could have been done. And I think that history also has produced an imbalance, if you will, and perhaps a lack of clarity around whose job it is to do what. And so what I would like to do is to work with you to come up with a way to ensure that things are being done properly, that information is being shared, and also in a way so that people don't leave their time on council saying hallelujah and throwing their arms up in the air. And I've seen, unfortunately, quite a few of you who've been sitting in those chairs, and at the end they run screaming from the building. And so what I'm trying to do is to make it better for you so that your public service is appreciated and not a horrible experience.
I won't belabor this any longer, but we've had quite a bit of discussion over the last week about the dissemination of information, particularly on a one-to-one basis between the town manager and members of town council. The town manager has very graciously agreed to meet with each of us individually to discuss items, I believe, on a weekly basis if necessary. That seems to me to be extremely inefficient. You know, to sit down with each individual member and go over, you know, provide information is extremely, extremely inefficient. And beyond that, it doesn't give us the opportunity to hear the questions other council members may have that turn a light bulb on for us. So in other words, we're meeting with Quinn to go over particular information, and I have a question, I drill down a little bit, I come away with a whole different insight than someone else who has come and listened to the presentation and hasn't asked any questions. So we've got, I think, we need to come up with a better method of providing information. And personally, I think we have it with our monthly department reports. But I'm willing to have that discussion with my colleagues.
I think that's a very important question, and in my work, it's an issue that every locality struggles with, and you just need to tailor it to what's right for you. So, thank you.
I guess we're on the monthly department reports.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Monthly department reports, if you look at the agenda as Kathy gets it pulled up, I just want to point out real quick, Gladys is on vacation this week. In addition to that, it's also the month where we go from one fiscal year to the next fiscal year. So she's still waiting for some final numbers to come in, so it kind of worked out. But just know that we haven't forgotten about it. We're waiting for her return and for those numbers to come in for her portion. Next slide. I feel pretty confident we can go ahead and talk. Next slide. Thank you. Updates to previous reports. I would like to commend, I think Mr. Farnham's been pretty modest over there. I've been able to interact with his efforts in regards to the Toy Smith project update, and from what I understand, it's well into the $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 range. I don't have the specific number in terms of contribution, but it's moving right along. I know there's been significant interaction with his organization and with the town, and other outlying funding sources. And so from a funding perspective, it's moving along, as well as from a planning, going through the RFPs for being able to look at the engineering site plan, those things. Everything is pretty fluid. It is a government, small town government. It takes time. But if there's any specific questions that need to be answered, please feel free to get with me and I'll answer those. We have a working draft document for the Klotz building. It hasn't been finalized yet, but that's moving right along as well. And the town website is up and running, and from what I understand, we have the majority of things from our old website on there, but our greatest accomplishment is now that we were able to successfully make contact with PayPal, we've got the ability to take payment online, and that's pretty important. I just wanted you to put that on. That being said, because this is the perfect forum to come out, we understand and believe in continuous improvement. So as the council members identify items that they would like to see on the website, please inform me and we'll get them on there post haste, as well as the town and the citizenry. We're going to get our best ideas from the public, and we want to be able to support that for the betterment of everyone. Major activities, we all know it's our...
Just a question before you jump.
Yes.
When do you think, how long do you think it'll be before we know our total cost and our total need or fundraising for the Victoria Smith?
I'm going to turn that question over to, well, partially I'm going to turn it over to Allison, because I think what will decide that will be the next step, which is understanding the stormwater and the engineering site plan. And once we get that, I think I can give you a viable answer.
Because I know we're feeling great about it.
Yeah, well, I as one of the chief bodies involved with that, keeps me nervous, keeps me up at night. I understand that there's a lot of secondary and tertiary costs that you've identified in previous meetings that were not considered initially. But I think we're going to be able to get that information through that site plan.
maximum? Did we ever get a plan?
We have a working draft document. It's not complete, so it's not ready for presentation yet, but that's the status of it. I wanted to make sure that didn't drop off. Major activities, as you can, as everyone well knows, we're in peak season for Colonial Beach. It's height of tourist season. We're seeing a lot more activity on the beach, which also, while that's a good thing, but it keeps Public Works and our police department rather busy. And most of our day-to-day operations are surrounded by supporting our weekends. And that's okay, that's a good thing. But just know that our bandwidth is pretty spent right now. As far as, this is also our peak season for events, so I as a town manager spend a lot of time with a lot of these nonprofits. And my hat's off to them. I enjoy every time I get to interact with all these various groups to get up here and report, because I don't have the assets organic to town hall, and they're doing the good work that I can't touch. And I would like to personally thank everyone who's a part of that, which is probably the majority of the audience right now. Thank you. Of course, we're diving into our parking plan improvements. That being said, and you'll see right here, we're also waiting to be able to adjust as presented back in March, the $2 an hour versus the $1 an hour. We should be coming very close to being able to execute that portion. And we have also discussed revenue strategies. And this gives me a quick chance. I just briefly want to touch on it. Saturday, I was able to present the avenue, the business avenue, to be able to capture unidentified, undiscovered revenue sources for the town. After further, and I would like to thank Mr. Deller for going through that contract and with the fine-tooth comb really redlining things that we should be aware of. And then legal counsel was able to say, this is fantastic, I understand the philosophy, why I would want to present that to council, but given the nature of what it is, we're going to have to go through the procurement process, which put it out to bid. So unfortunately, I would have loved to come here tonight and been able to move forward with that right away, expeditiously. But by next month, hopefully, we'll be able to go through the bidding process just to make sure we as a town and governing body have checked all the correct blocks for that type of movement. Any questions? We can go to the next slide. Okay, the next slide. And some of this is, again, the website. Please reach out, get in contact with me. I have tons and tons of pictures and stuff coming in from citizens. There's always more welcome. And I know that there was certain potential discussions about long-term rental revenue that's going on. We're still in the fact-finding phase and the discovery phase, but it has not fallen off of our radar. That I would like to quickly put out that this year we have a lot more events in town, and we're looking to refine our processes with those events. And I wanted to use this forum not only to let the town council know that expect minimal but very refinement changes to our event process, and if through that refinement, if we identify any significant change in terms of fees, monetary things, I will bring that to you accordingly. But what I would like to do with the council's approval is towards the end of summer season, have a complete packet that I can present to you as a way forward, so then I can take your recommendations and guidance and further refine it. And of course, as promised and always mentioned, I would like to remind everybody that as we did the budget back in the springtime, that we are working, and I don't know a better term, but skeleton crew, very reduced man capacity for operations. We're streamlining this year, flatline budget operations to identify exactly what it takes in terms of revenues and expenditures to operate. So with future fiscal years that we can be able to provide council with good advice on where additional money should go, and to make sure that we're being financially sound. So I'll just keep that on there as a placeholder. And there's been multiple discussions. I've had multiple discussions with interested parties looking at specific town property. None of them are briefable yet. It's just items of interest at this point. But just know that about once a week or once every other week, somebody gives me a call about one property or another and wants to find out additional information. I bring this up not only for situational awareness, but typically in the past, things with specific properties haven't been done yet. Maybe they need to be surveyed. Maybe we need to do an assessment. But I wanted it not to be a surprise that if one day I come to council and say, hey, look, I have an interested party, I think we're ready to get a assessment done, or maybe a new survey, that you kind of see that coming. A couple other things that I would like to mention is currently, especially after Saturday, we're trying to capture all of the council's intents. They weren't formally put out in resolution, but we're trying to gather, and it's going to take time. But what we're recognizing and going out to that flatline budget is that we're tapped in terms of operational bandwidth. I mean, we're working at capacity. And what I wanted to recommend, suggest, or advise is that for the month of August, if we look at some options, if we can either take a recess in regards to meetings or go down to one work session for August, it would allow staff time to capture everything that council is interested in and come back and formalize it, and to be able to give you a complete product. It would be advantageous to the staff. The other idea that we discussed in our departmental meeting this week was, would it at all be possible moving forward for the rest of the year to have a week gap between our working session and our meeting this evening? We come out of here Saturday. I have a laundry list of things that I need to get to the staff, especially in summertime. Probably the first part of our day on Monday is dealt with either citizen complaints or things that we want to fix from the weekend. It's tourist season. This is normal. It's organic to a tourist town. It would be very beneficial for us if we had that week to where we could just catch our breath and be able to prepare for the Wednesday formal meeting, if that was possible. I think Kathy's been working on a schedule that would support that, taking us into the calendar year 19, if that's something you would like to entertain. Just a couple of highlights. I know it was discussed months ago, but I'm currently looking at Office 365. Right now, the way we operate, it's very stovepipe from an IT standpoint. To give you an idea that my slide couldn't be updated because we're using the shared drive, but some reason I think somebody was already in the document, et cetera, nauseum. But it's my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that the idea of Office 365 has been discussed, digested, and can be moved on. I look forward to it pending your approval. And the other system that we're also looking at, and we were able to, the Bright system, and just for public understanding, public knowledge, the Bright system is the system that we use to look at budgets and accounts and where monies flow, purchase orders, etc. I am not exaggerating when I say it's a program software from the 80s. We're talking green screen. I think we all remember well. It's Commodore 64 era, and it's not. It's one step away, Mr. Survey, from Bunchgrove. You're absolutely right. And I think we squeezed as much juice out of that as we can. We were fortunate enough to have Gladys spend some time going to a conference to where she was able to identify a financially responsible alternative that we've looked at in greater detail, and I'm ready to move forward with giving you a presentation on that piece of software so we can make that switch. This is somewhat time sensitive because right now the Bright system, the server that it's on, is archaic and it's getting ready to fall out of warranty this fall. So this is perfect timing. It's hard on it will be hard on the staff because we just made the website change and email change. We're going to go to Office 365. There's goodness in the cloud in terms of additional security. And we have a server that would typically cost us around $40,000 to $45,000 just to continue with the 1985 software. So if we're going to make a change, and oh, by the way, that server's lifespan would be for the next 5 to 10 years. So I don't really see that as a viable option.
And didn't the prior council actually address moving away from the Bright system a couple of years ago?
It was discussed.
We knew this was coming.
Would you speak in the microphone?
I'm sorry. I was asking Eddie if a couple of years ago, I believe the last council actually had been brought this from the town manager for, as the system was getting ready to run out of warranty, we weren't going to be able to support it and so forth, and also getting the two systems between the school and the town on the same program. And I mean, this was something I know over 2 years ago we started.
Yeah, the issue was the two other options. One of them I think was Muni.
Unicode, yeah.
And something else, and they weren't a good fit, and we couldn't make the transition to them. unless we did a lot of other things. There was going to be, we didn't have money to do it, quite frankly. The 365 is a win-win for us because when I was acting town manager, one of the first things I realized is we had no backup system. And I think we're required by law to have 5 years of backup of our data. And so we had to go actually sent Adam down to Walmart to buy portable hard drives, and we capture data, I think, every 2 months now, 60 days on individual computers so that we have it.
But that's 365 for our documents and stuff, that's not our county.
Correct. We finished. So with the 365, I was going to hope to, can we just give the manager the ability to do that, or is that something we have to vote on, or, I mean, I think it's...
I think that, I don't know what the cost is,
right.
And so in terms of cost, go ahead.
We would be able to attain Office 365 with our current vendor, Cyberability.
That part's cheap, I'm more concerned about the accounting system. 365 is negligible.
Oh, the accounting system, and these are rough numbers, but it probably is around to the $80,000 to $100,000. However, I would have to replace a $45,000 server.
So my question on that is, have we budgeted for that this year at all? And are we going to end up with our back against the wall, being forced to do something that we hadn't planned for, which seems to keep coming up for us?
If memory serves me, given our current tax increase, we're going to have about $250,000 of excess capacity.
That's correct, Mr. Dowd, but we also think we're going to be able to find some monies to support it. It's unfortunate that the server that we have is failing, but if there's a time to do it, there's a time to do it. And it's no longer functional. And I think there's going to be some additional security through the 365. And just for everybody's understanding, we're really talking about two separate animals. We're talking about the Bright system over here, which has its own hardware, software requirements, independently working from an Office 365. Office 365 encompasses all our account emails, things like that. And there's another benefit that shame on me, I haven't discussed it. Everything that we do via digital is foilable. And our current provider is saying, hey, you guys have outgrown us. We can't just like that provide your foilable digital information. Well, with Office 365, because everything's stored on the cloud, they can support that. So they can support municipality. In addition to that, I know that a couple years ago, before my time, I think there was some hacking issues into the town as well. And there's nobody right now better to support that type of firewall security as that organization. So we're getting a lot of things that we really don't have right now. But I wanted to make for the public aware that we're talking about two separate things that must occur, that we have to have for the town.
365 is a subscription that continues to update, and it updates your spyware, everything continuously, so you don't have to buy a new issue every 2 years.
Yes.
With regard to the software, the financial software package, and Andrea, you can chime in on this. Before we get too far down the line there, I'd like to keep in the back of our mind that there is a procurement process that's going to be coming to play. So before you bring us the package and say, here you go, it's time to buy this one, we may want to keep that in mind.
Understood.
Perhaps initially go out, rather than an RFP, go out with a request for information, where you just get information from various software vendors and help you kind of make your decision before you actually go out with a competitive package.
And that's logical and makes sense, and it's certainly something of this magnitude fall into the procurement process. But I want to remind everybody, we must be ever mindful that the clock is ticking on that server. And the warranty, I think, is already up, if not up already in October. So we're kind of, chicken little, the sky isn't falling. We just need to be aware that there's a certain time hack that we're going to need.
Other question, Andrea, on the same thing as Bill was saying on procurement, granted we've identified this avenue, do we have to open that up to the public as well? If we were to bring on this consulting firm to chase our licenses and fees and so on and so forth, do we have to put that out and allow others to respond?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Quinn, I'd just like to comment on a couple other things you mentioned. The week gap, I think that's fine. I mean, do we have to vote on that? How do we, Kathy, are you going to put together a week gap between our work session and our so that we can approve that?
Absolutely, and I'll have it ready afterwards.
Because I love the monthly reports, and I love nothing more than staying up the night before to read it. And I haven't had that opportunity. They've been coming here at the same day as the meeting, so.
Office 365 will support that.
And on the same lines, I guess that I was a little confused. We get this weekly activity report, the war report. We got that yesterday, and I assumed that that was going to kind of be basically the guts of your staff report, but it's not even in it. So I spent a lot of time going through this war report, and it wasn't even anything to do with the staff report. So I'm not sure really what to focus on from you.
Oh, sure.
And there was nothing really changed between the 2 week reports.
Between the 2 weekly, the weekly activity reports, yes. Those are very granular, and sometimes those reports, and I know I haven't been sending them out for council consumption in more than about a month. The reason why they're kept to council and this kind of for official use only is that gives me an opportunity to maybe express an HR issue that shouldn't be released to public, or that there's something that is just not appropriate for public consumption. Quite frankly, if there's an issue with personnel, or if there's maybe some litigation that the town is looking at. But it also provides an avenue for the council to be aware of it, situational awareness. What I try to do with the department reports is kind of like overarching broad brush strokes, the major muscle movements that specific department is engaged in. That way we can take further refinement from council. So it's designed to be desperate in nature, to where it's different. That being said, though, the idea behind the reports is to support the council's will. So if there's a method, a consensus as how we should change them or alter them or make refinements, I'm certainly to play with the council.
Well, I guess I'm getting lots of, what do you call it, granular information, very broad brush, that really there's no detail to, and we spend ourselves looking at a lot of broad brush things, and we don't know anything about them because there's no detail.
Sure.
I couldn't tell you what the majority of your items listed on your war report even are, because there's nothing there.
So we'll need to include that that ties into what Mr.
The whole
Della was saying.
dissemination of information, yes.
Yeah, and another perfect example is Mr. Trivets' presentation at the top of the meeting. I mean, I didn't know anything about it, unfortunately, and that's something that I think could have been in the report, somewhere.
Oh, Mr. Dell, I wasn't aware until 2 o'clock this afternoon either.
Is that right, the whole thing?
No, we discussed it briefly yesterday, but that it was going to come up as this kind of issue on the code was going to be quoted. I was unaware until this afternoon. If I would have sent the department report out to you Monday or Sunday as planned, the 48 hours, it would not have made it to the packet.
It sounds like this is something that's been simmering for more than just a couple of days.
And you know what, I think that that is something that later tonight we'll have an opportunity to discuss in greater detail.
One more thing while we're talking about the budget here, or finances. We started a hiring freeze a couple of months ago. Is that hiring freeze still on?
Depends on how you want to define hiring freeze, and I'll go and elaborate.
Of course. It's a soft freeze, isn't it?
The initial hiring freeze was to ensure that we were able to deadline the budget, we could get the correct numbers, get the accounts, get the line item accounts, everything correct and baseline. Now what happened is we've had a couple of departments, one to speak of is the police department, another one I believe is public works. So while they were on a hiring freeze, through attrition, they went under that life support number. So let's just call it a life support number. For that intent with the police department, they really don't need to fall into that life support number because it affects scheduling, how long an officer can work, and that's where the hiring freeze comes off. But in terms of adding additional personnel for additional duties, we're not there yet. Does that help further clarify?
Well, actually, what prompted my question was the fact that I knew at least one officer had departed recently from the police department, and that's what put this whole question in the back of my mind about the hiring freeze. I didn't realize that we were instituting a hiring freeze only to accommodate new work.
No, I don't view it as such. I share a different way to look at it. The hiring freeze was to not hire any additional personnel and to get down to a specific number, to a specific baseline. We achieved that. Any additional personnel that are being hired right now are to replace what we've attrited past that number.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
One of those things, Mike, I did ask, I know we've got a CBO building official coming in the 30th of the month, and I was asking Allison, how did that compare to what we had budgeted, because we've been previously with part-time building inspectors for years, and I didn't know how things were falling into line with the budget on that as far as now having a full-time person. And it seemed that she had not been provided that information. I was wondering if, how we were doing with that.
Right, Gladys and I got together. We knew that there was going to be a significant overlap because the way a CBO is built is you almost have to build one in internally. They're not readily available out on the free market. So we also knew that we had to keep that contractual help while we build the capability of that CBO that we are going to hire. We were able to determine the salary based off of what Gladys and I forecasted. I unfortunately don't have those numbers for you, but it was considered when building an FY19 budget.
So we do have to consider.
Yes, we did.
Thank you.
Pending any questions, I'm going to give it over to Public Works.
1 second, real quick. I'd like to just reach out to the council. Have we made any kind of decision on moving the meetings around for August or Kathy, I don't think you.
The work session would be August the 11th, and then your regular meeting is August the 15th.
Okay, so you have a Saturday and a Wednesday, 4 days apart. So do you want to just keep the regular meeting but make it a work session? Keep that date and make it a work session? And let them come and report.
Too far out into the morning.
The 15th.
And then you get a week onto that, the 22nd.
Well, there wouldn't be a regular meeting. In lieu of the regular meeting, you would have one. You would have one. And it would give, because the manager and staff have asked for time to get caught up and then present to us. So that would actually give them basically the month of August off, except for we would have a work session where they could come and tell us where they are in their pipeline.
One thing I can say is, even though I'm not a fan of Saturday meetings, the idea, it's still fresh in my mind when we come out of a Saturday work session and we immediately go into a Wednesday meeting to deal with what we decided to deal with in the Saturday meeting. It's so much easier to keep everything right here instead of having to go back and revisit it a week and a half or 2 weeks later.
Oh, Mr. Serby, I'm so happy to hear that, because that actually is the actual function of a work session. Really, a work session should be where you review almost the identical agenda that you're going to look at your regular meeting.
I think we've done that in the last couple of meetings fairly well. And again, I'm not a fan of the Saturday thing, but the timeliness is it works very well to be able to keep things fresh in my mind anyhow. And that's not an easy thing to do. I hate to get them dragged out.
What do you folks think? Here's something you guys.
They want the whole month.
I think the council, the way I understood it, the manager and staff was hoping to have the month of August meeting free so that they can collectively get up to speed on all the different issues at hand. And I think, I'm not really a fan of it completely, but I think because of the changes we've gone through over the year, with loss of leadership and then temporary leadership and then new leadership in different departments, I think I can see where it's hard to stay up. And so I'll support it. I think the meetings are important, but my preference would be to have what would have been the regular meeting would become a work session where you could bring us, if you had questions for us, where you were. And then with September, we would then have another work session and then the meeting, and hopefully we can clean the billet of multiple items that just have been lingering out there. If that makes sense to the rest of you, I don't know. But
I like the idea. If we're going to skip a meeting, I would definitely want another work session prior to, like you said, in September.
Yes. Yeah.
If we're going to.
Yeah. What do you guys think?
We still got a lot of departments that are asking for answers on things.
Mr. Mayor, I gotta tend to agree with Mr. Serby. It is kind of nice to walk away from last Saturday and have everything still fresh on our mind. I understand where staff's coming from too. But I think we're talking about two different things. I think we're talking about, are we gonna give some more space between our work session and our meetings?
Yes,
And then somebody's talking about August. What are we gonna do about August? So we're talking about two different things. I think that's what I'm hearing. So I guess we need to address one at a time.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, and I'm not arguing one side or the other, but theoretically, if you have a work session that mirrors your regular meeting,
Right.
which is a pattern I would like to see evolve, it should make your regular meeting much, much shorter,
Right.
because you've done the heavy lifting.
And I think to answer your question, Dallas, is the fact that we are gonna have another work session prior to the September meeting, that issue would be null and void unless we were still having an August meeting.
Right. Yeah. I think probably, I'd support not doing anything in August, but I think the staff might end up with questions as well for us. And then they can follow up again in September, and then by the September regular meeting, we should be able to, by the September work session, we should have all the issues in front of us, and we should be able to vote on it with confidence in the September regular meeting.
The other thing that council might consider is that, Mr. Trivett made a request for a joint meeting.
Okay.
If you're gonna have only one meeting in August, perhaps you wanna schedule that joint meeting in August, just so you don't have too many in
Can we do a
September.
work session first and then have the joint meeting with the schools?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Or you think we should do it the other way around, in case we need to react to something from the meeting?
Yeah, that's true too.
I for one don't fully understand the complexity of Mr. Trivett's issues. I don't understand it. Maybe you guys do, but I don't fully understand it. So how do we get smart on it?
But that would be the town manager's job.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I would request that, town manager's been over there and been silent. What it sounds like to me, and I don't mean that in a negative way, Quinn, but what it sounds like to me is that they're sending you, requests for bills without proper documentation, because that's the way they used to do it with past administrations and past treasurers. Am I correct?
Yes, I received checks with no invoices, with the checks for me to sign. Typically, is proper accounting practice, who's going to sign a check without some documentation. So I went back and asked the finance department if we hadn't addressed that in the previous month. They indicated to me that yes, in fact we had. It's unfortunate that Gladys isn't here because I'm sure she has an email or two around it, but she's not. We can get to that at a later date. My concern is for the town. I act for the best of the town with every decision I make. That's my intent. When I receive information that I think that concerns me because I'm signing something with no documentation, I have to bring it to my subject matter experts. In this case, it was legal. This came up yesterday to where checks were left on my desk. I found out that there was no documentation. Went to our finance department, said, was there documentation with this? Did you know about this? Should there be? And do I have it right? They said, no, there should be documentation with checks. Why would you sign them if you don't? The school board knows this. It's been a discussion piece for the last 2 months. I talked to the superintendent a couple of times, and it was brought out too. They wanted to know what code refers to us needing documentation for these checks. So referred to the code at that point. I was like, honestly, I'm not the subject matter expert on code and or legal, but I'll go make that phone call and find out and get back to you. I didn't see it as a big issue. There should be an invoice. Somewhere there's an invoice. It didn't seem like something that needed really to be addressed in public forum.
Yeah, real quick, Mr. Trivett mentioned that previous auditing firms had never requested. Have you talked to the auditing firm that we're using now, which is a different auditing firm?
Yes, there's a couple, and that's something that will, with your approval for the August meeting, come up. Mr. Trivett mentioned 2 different instances. One is a revolving cash that was identified by the current auditors, that was known about by the previous auditors, The way I understand it, and again, I'm not legal, but I've spoken to legal about it, to where school cannot carry over cash from year to year. That's not the way it works, and that has been the practice for many years. I don't know the origin date. I know that when we looked at it, I think it was at least 3 or 4. So by not being able to carry that cash, the auditors, when they did their preliminary investigation about 2 or 3 weeks ago, brought it as a topic that we needed to fix by fall. When they come in, you have to address where this cash is. So that was a topic that needed to be discussed. The other topic in regards to the $110,000 for the project, as we all know, we had the school built last year. There were students in the school last September. But that project, from a financial point of view, has not been closed out yet. So in other words, it's still open, it's still in the books. It hasn't been closed. And by Gladys's accounting methods and looking at it, she's identifying that $110,000, roughly, I believe it's up to 114 now, have not been spent. And this is good news. This is fantastic news. That means that they were great stewards of the money. They were responsible with their spending methods, and that some of the debt the town incurred can come back to help make the town financially better. So this is all good news. I don't see it as a negative thing, but we just have to make sure that the school as well as the town sees the same thing financially, and that's what the auditors are for, and that's what they've identified, and that's what that discussion in August will occur. Does that help?
I do want to point out one thing. Mr. Tribbett did point out that the $110 are dollars that are still going to be spent. They're not coming back to us. It's just that they haven't paid for items that haven't been delivered yet. Is that correct, Frank? That's what. So don't count that as savings yet, because those costs are still projected to be spent.
I've met on multiple occasions with the previous superintendent as well as the chief financial officer for the school board, and been reassured with Gladys that they had spent everything minus maybe $900 to $2,000.
I'm just saying what he said tonight, this evening. That's all I can go.
I understand, and I'm informing you of what was told to me all the way back in April. Going back to April, that they were waiting for about $2,400 that still needed to be spent.
It was my understanding that all of the costs associated with the school were going through the prime contractor. I don't know if that's true or not.
I'm not, I don't have the project schedule for that.
I guess
so
the point to that question is, the prime contractor should have provided us with a request for final payment. And I don't know, are we saying that's up in the air, or is it small purchases to support?
My understanding is these are small after-the-fact purchases that don't necessarily go through the general, but they're FF&E or what have you
I believe Chancellor mentioned at one point, we've repeatedly asked for the project schedule so we could understand better and glean better information, and it really hasn't been provided to us yet. It's unfortunate again that Gladys isn't here, because she could really speak very pointedly as to the numbers. But I'm sure that when she returns from vacation, she'll be able to do that.
I hope it is only a couple $1,000.
Real quick.
Yeah, these are good problems to have.
If we could, I'd ask that the council members, if you want to prepare a brief for each council member about the situation, you can as well. I know I'm going to take some time to go up and actually physically sit down with the manager and find out the ins and outs, dates, times, things of those natures, because there was a lot said earlier, and I certainly wasn't prepared to answer, and I'm not sure that we were prepared as a forum to answer that as well. But a meeting is definitely in order. We'll have the meeting, but I think each council member needs to have all the facts as well as we know them up front. So if you could entertain each council member, or in twos, however you want to do it, that's fine as well.
If I could make a recommendation, I would like to have someone, perhaps you or Frank, reach out to Mr. Tribbett and make sure we have a list of all of his issues, because I don't want to go to a meeting and have issues come up and all of us look at each other like, well, we didn't know about that. I mean, I think that's the prudent thing to do. Reach out to Mr. Tribbett, make sure we have a list of all his issues and his position on those issues, so that we can make a reasonable review of it.
And also in regards to scheduling, to further support Mr. Deller's point, I think at that point the auditors need to be present as well. And I can appreciate the fact that the school is on a very tight budget and attorney fees are expensive. And maybe that's something that the council can to begin to socialize and digest what that looks like in terms of the legal cost.
Gladys was also a school board treasurer, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was the chief. She was the chief finance director for Stafford County, and has spent. I don't quote me on this, 5 to 10 years in that position. Considerable experience in school operations.
And if I could add, I would encourage the town council to work with the school board so that these things can be addressed.
Yep.
It's never good to spend money on lawyers.
Yeah, no. No, I think we can probably get to the bottom of it, so.
But you need to know what all the issues are.
Yeah, soon we know, exactly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
So are we deciding on 1 meeting, 2 meetings?
We will, do you wanna do it do you wanna do the August meeting, or do you wanna?
Work session at minimum.
Okay.
Take a work session and have the special meeting with the school board, let's get this out of the way.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
That's fine, so.
Is that a motion to cancel the August 11th work session and to invite the school board for a meeting following a work session by the town council on August the 15th? The work session on August the 15th would begin at 6 p.m. And what time would you like to invite the school board? 7:30?
Maybe we should do the school board first, Mr. Serby. I kind of agree with that, because we may have some discussions after that.
Do you want to say 5 o'clock?
We don't need to do it any earlier.
Okay.
Let's do that first.
6 o'clock.
Okay, so is there a motion to invite the school, is there a motion to cancel the work session set for August the 11th at 8 a.m. and to invite the school board for a joint meeting on August the 15th at 6 p.m. to be followed by a work session of the town council?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Allen?
Aye.
Mr. Lyler?
Aye.
Mr. Lehman?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Okay, thank you. Kathy, would you get that out to everyone tomorrow, the council members, please? Thank you. Yes,
So pending any additional questions, I'll give it over to Public Works.
Yep, please,
Okay.
thank you.
Good evening. Let me give you an update on not the last month's activity report, but the activity report relating to this air conditioning in here. It is you won't see any air conditioning until this block of ice that you have, and you turn air stops, so you have a block of ice, and it won't be thawing out anytime soon. I'm afraid you should have it again by tomorrow. I'm afraid it doesn't help us this evening. Anyway, we as you can see by the department reports, we had quite a few completed projects, and you have a lot more green than you might have seen last time. Playground perimeter, parking upgrade, phase 1. But this particular one is mostly your pedestrian plaza still waiting redesign, notice to proceed. We have a conference call coming, and I'm just giving you an update that this is now news that we have a conference call with VDOT and the DHCD to try and identify if we can truly move to notice to proceed ASAP. If we can go to the next screen, if there are no questions related to that, here's some of the long-term reclamation. We've completed phase 1, Riverview, Santa Maria. This was drainage, Santa Maria Alley right-of-way drainage. We haven't been doing a lot of drainage over the past time because we've been working feverishly towards our buildings and grounds and beach cleanups and numerous other activities, not to mention double trash routes. But there's still more planned. All right, here's your roads. Most of this is contracted services. Completed Stratford Azalea Road, Forest, Wakefield, Stratford Circle, Dogwood Avenue, Deep White Avenue, and Santa Maria was a resurface. All of those were completed, I see it didn't change the little blue, lines to green. Thought I had. Yes, sir.
Why from Washington Avenue?
Because these are actually CIPs other than Santa Maria. That's actually capital improvement, town roads, not DOT roads. So you'll see it on the screen.
So there's another one of those in here for that.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
So, Rob, the Meadows is paved.
The Meadows is completely paved at this time.
That's awesome. These people waited a long time.
Yes, they did.
Done. Yeah, very nice. Thank you so much for getting that done.
And if we can move on to the next one, you will see one seems to be missed.
It's at the end. It got twisted somehow.
Okay, okay. And this is just your project pipeline. It's pretty much the same. There's a couple greens that have been completed. You have some that have been extended. Here we go. This is your general fund work distribution. That's just how we end up spending our money between the general fund side and the utility fund side. This here is the water system CIP. This is just an update of the latest reimbursement request, and what this made of, Mr. Deller, is that this actually gives you dollars spent, and this is for reimbursement. It is not completely the amount is back a month for as far as the dollars spent. We actually are a little farther along in our percentage complete than what this may show. So you're a little behind. I thought you might be interested.
This is the $4 million.
That's correct.
Bond work that we did. And if memory recalls me correctly, as far as replacing old piping, this only represents approximately 5% of what we need to replace.
You've got 57 miles right now. We're at over 5 miles. We're somewhere around 6 miles. But keep in mind, the 57 miles are in various states of repair. And all these were identified as your major areas of leakage and through the last preliminary engineering report, which was done several years back. So these are the last of that preliminary engineering report. So, at which time you would go continue with evaluation of the system. A lot of your worst areas, even though we still have old areas, have been corrected, either through replacement. But you have others that still have issues in there, and they are depreciating as we speak. So yes, you can continue to figure that we will have a new round that may not be as pressing, but will still need to be done.
I think you'd agree that the idea is to get out ahead of it.
Yeah, I think that's the idea nationwide.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, that's why you can't wait 75 years to get it done.
Yes.
So that's the purpose of doing this now.
57 miles, it takes a long time.
Just real quick on this thing, and you don't have to go back to it, but I see here that we got a number of items here. It says scheduled June 25th through 29th.
Which one is that?
Is that when it's scheduled to be done?
Oh.
I see under VDOT project, Washington Avenue, Taggart, Santa Maria.
It's done.
It's done?
Those are done.
Shouldn't it be
I didn't
green?
click
I
on
need to be
green.
a color of green.
I didn't click on
Should it be
green, I'm sorry. I was a little rushed.
That's out
All
front.
right, I'll get the colors eventually.
It's Saturday to Wednesday.
It's Saturday to Wednesday, exactly.
Rob, that says it, I mean, that's on the pipeline chart, right? I mean, if that's paved. The only reason I had asked about the Washington Avenue thing is we got a requirement for marking these roads immediately upon paving, and it's been a disaster out here with these unmarked roads. People are all.
Where are you citing that requirement?
Washington Avenue.
I know that, but
When you,
but I just
when you
just want to
research
let you know that it is in process. However, we have to get it moving in.
normally,
And there will be pedestrian crossings too.
I understand that, but right now we have no marking whatsoever on that road. And as a repaving requirements done by VDOT require them to be remarked immediately within a day after the fact when they put it out to bid. And I just think that we got a problem.
And that is on their primary.
Well, I'm saying whether it's not required or not.
Well, I
think we
appreciate
got a problem.
it, but I will, and
We need to mark it.
I am letting you
If
know
not
that they
the
are here
permanents,
today.
If not the permanents.
Okay.
We at least need the little plastic yellow stickies they stick in the asphalt.
Okay.
The people
Thank
know
you
where
very
the
much.
heck we've got.
I appreciate it. I'll take that. All right, we can go to the next, here we are. Proposed no wake zone signage for application. And this is, we have a call in also. There have been on occasion that they have been on, allowed on the channel markers. So I have a question in prior to actually submitting this particular one in here, because this is figuring on utilizing buoys.
Independent buoys.
Yeah. Obviously, it would be, if they approve the use of signage on the channel markers, that would save us. And I believe, and I'm not necessarily a waterman all the time, I have seen the no wake zones on channel markers, and they are close to the center of so the center is the dividing line. I'm hoping that they say we can utilize some of the channel.
Will this be a town, will it be our responsibility to go put this stuff out here?
Yes, it will, and we'll be responsible for maintaining.
And I will say this, that most of the markers that we have here don't really match our buoy locations and channel marker locations. And
No. See, those were placed as just strategic locations, trying to, do 5. Some are near the marinas, if you notice.
I think we'll have a problem probably getting them to agree to let us put markers on there.
I'm worried about it. I'm hoping that they'll.
And we already ordered this stuff, right?
We have not ordered these yet. The application has to go first before.
Because I thought I'd heard a meeting or two.
And the application process here, where it is that I have the, Kathy and Pam have been working together to gather the documents that we need. We have the resolution, which you'll do, and we also need one more document, I believe, and if Kathy's aware of it yet, we need a public meeting notice.
Right. Were you able to get with DGIF and have them show you where they want these?
Yes, and they did not show me where they wanted. They said you show for us to show them.
Okay. See, they told us that they would actually.
Mayor Blunt, can you
Yes.
speak in?
I'm sorry, yes, ma'am, I'm sorry. The Department of Game and Inland Fisheries, when we met with them in the preliminary meeting, said they were more than graceful. They said, we'll show you where to put these things, so it's not so egregious for you. There was fixed buoys and buoys that would require an anchor, and that was the big issue. Was apparently at Yacht Center, they on occasion lose a couple of those buoys over a period of 4 or 5 years. They drift, they get somebody hooks them
For yard
yard ornament, whatever. Regardless, I just thought maybe if you just ask them one more time if they would at least look at this, because they may be able to minimize this amount here of buoys as well.
I sent them an email today.
Okay, awesome.
This morning, actually.
Okay, can you just give us maybe a little bit of where we are and making sure, because you keep hearing things from people over in the county and so forth saying, oh, y'all aren't gonna have that, hadn't been approved, and this and that. My understanding was we were allowed to do it on our side of the town line. However, others are trying to tell me that no, that's not the case. You still need the approval of the state, this and that. Where are we actually with?
So we have approval from.
We're good to go.
Game and Inland Fisheries, who was.
And when I called them,
monitors
Game and
that
Inland
board.
Fisheries assured me we could do it also.
They said it's ours to do. So, yeah. Thank you.
Rob, one quick suggestion would be, and if other members approve, I think we need some signage at the ramp, notifying folks that it's you're entering a no wake zone.
And no, we're not putting one at the end of your dock.
At the end of my.
Yep.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Dillon.
Thank you, Rob. Any questions for Rob? Town clerk, Kathy?
Still working and catching up on minutes, making progress.
She doesn't have a microphone. Sorry, here we go, Pete.
I am continuing to try to catch up on minutes. My plan, has been going a little slower than I thought. I was thinking it's gonna take 3 months. It may go into 4 months, but definitely by the end of the year, I've worked a lot on the webpage, and done a lot of other research projects, for different departments. And that's it.
One thing I've talked to Kathy about quite a bit, and I'd really love to see us try to do now that we've got the website, is ever since Kathy's been our clerk, everything that she has, whether it's agendas, meeting minutes, resolutions, ordinances, whatever, they're all in folders by date and available in electronic file. Super easy. And the problem we keep running into is having any history on our issues, and we can't go back and pull anything out of archives without going and bothering Kathy. And, you know, I don't know why we can't put a lot of this, or at least make it available to us. I don't know if it's a problem making it available to the public and everybody, but I mean, we've got to have a way to be able to get into some of this information, and do our background, do our homework for me. And
I think the manager has.
That's a very reasonable and logical request, and that's one of the great things about Office 365, because it's cloud-based. We should be able to store some of the stuff. And I know I feel like I should get 2 paychecks here for but that
no, we
is
can
not.
do it. The idea is.
Yeah, and I think that is in our future. We understand the
Sooner
need
the
for
better.
it. I concur.
Thank you. Captain Muffin.
Page one of our report depicts significant activities for us for June. We had our law enforcement torch run for Special Olympics that was very successful. Went through town. I'm sorry. Special Olympics torch run that went through town. Special shout out to Alan at Hoonans for supplying snacks and everything to the kids and some of the staff at the end of that. And also the significant activity was obviously the Potomac River Festival that we had. Some of the other items on page one were currently ongoing investigations that we have for the month of June. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Page two and also page 3 depicts some of the activities that we responded to for the month of June in reference to criminal calls and investigations. And aside from the regular department report, for the month of June, the police department had 518 total calls for service. We issued 22 traffic summonses for the month. We issued 75 parking tickets for the month of June. We had 4 subjects arrested for violations including aggravated assault, driving under the influence, and drunk in public. And that's all that I have.
Questions for the chief or the captain? Thank you. Allison, Planning and Community Development.
Mr. Mayor and members of Town Council, the first page is the report on code compliance. As you can see, there's it's grass season, so we are still cutting a lot of grass and receive complaints on property where grass needs to be cut. And also as well, the building permits that have been issued are on that page and the revenue generated from that. The second page is something new that I will be continuing to improve as the next couple months go by. It is a list of all the items that are outstanding, that need public hearing, and then those as well that don't, that are issues and items. A lot of my work is work that goes from the staff, to the planning commission, then to town council. And so I'm trying to make sure that there's a coordinated effort. I have listed on here the items that the planning commission has stated are still outstanding, haven't gotten to the town council yet, as well as things from the town manager, who is my supervisor, and also things that are from town council. Already while I was sitting here, there are items that I need to add, such as I noticed I hadn't put the fee schedule on here, and that needs to be updated. The dog park issue needs to be placed on here. Piers is a big issue, and it's just something that I don't have files on. I need to get a complete list, a complete database, and then make sure that the leasing of all those piers is tracked. And I have ready for public hearing 4 piers, or getting ready for public hearing as soon as I notify the town attorney. There are 4, but there are many more that I need to identify and then see the status of the lease, and then get them back on track for that. So if there's any items that the town council sees that they'd like to place on this list, I will try to work as quickly as possible to get through them. Town attorney is waiting on me to finish review and get caught up on some of the things that are coming from the planning commission.
The clock is ticking.
And so.
I have a quick question back to page 1.
Yes, sir.
With the 24 big grass violations, is that what it was? Did you say they were cutting grass, or cutting grass? Did you mention that?
Yes, that's correct.
Are we charging enough money, or are they getting a bargain? Because
I think they're getting a bargain.
It just seems that it's just perpetual.
Yes.
And I get it. If they're not in town, they're like, hey, the town cuts it for, let's just hypothetically say 35, and I'd be paying someone else 55. So
exactly.
Now, is that being done by a term contract? Because that's a term contract.
It is
Who quotes that to us, correct?
I'll find out.
We've always had that.
Okay. There is a contract. I know that the code compliance officer goes out with that same person under contract and has this done. But
it just seemed to me if we put some teeth in it, maybe this number would lower some.
yes, and we can certainly discuss that along with the fee schedule.
And Dre, I believe, and the rest of the council, I believe we passed an ordinance that is still in limbo somewhere.
No.
Huh? It's not? It's been passed and implemented?
I thought so.
No.
And what I had said to Teresa was to keep track of her time and to incorporate, any administrative time.
Yeah, I remember that.
And that we could go above and beyond that.
Correct.
So.
I'll find that and send it out to everybody. I think I might have it.
Yeah.
No, I think we finally resolved it. We kept going around and around. You don't think so?
I don't think so. I think the prior department chief had issues with certain aspects of it.
Right.
And I think it just withered.
No pun intended.
No pun intended.
I know that the code compliance officer has spoken to me about this, and so I'll make sure that information gets back to you.
Okay. Thank you. Mayor, I think we've had a lot of comments. So, I want to thank the department heads for their presentations tonight as well. Council, do you have anything else to add to that? Okay. Old business. Resolution 26-18, banners for Colonial Avenue, was in tab B. books, we discussed this at the work session. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second? Discussion?
I would only question the date that's included here. It says, the town council meeting on Saturday, July. Aren't we approving it today?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I recommend that be amended.
I think that's on a few of the other future ones too, like one or two of the other ones.
Yes, it was.
It's because they,
Bill's our new.
They don't have
Bill's our new Michelangelo.
Microsoft 365 or something.
Yeah, office workers.
Okay, so it's amended to read the July 18th.
Yes, sir.
Is there a motion to approve that?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any more discussion? Mr. Allen?
Aye.
Mr. Lyler?
Aye.
Mr. Lehman?
Aye.
Mr. Serby? Phil?
Aye.
Phil?
Aye.
Chair, thank you. Motion passes.
That's the amendment, now we gotta go for the vote.
Oh, I'm sorry. We'll go back to the vote now. That was the amendment. Okay, is there a motion to approve?
It's already been made.
Mr. Allen?
Aye.
Mr. Lyler?
Aye.
Mr. Lehman?
Aye.
Mr. Serby?
Aye.
Mr. Geller?
Aye.
Mr. Rogers?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Okay. Now we're back. All right. All right, so tab C, we've had some more discussion tonight about this. It's resolution 27-18, which ratifies execution of the dispatch agreement with Westmoreland County. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Also, did we change that date?
Yeah.
To today's date?
Okay. Is there, okay, so, motion to approve the amendment to change the date to the day?
So moved.
Is there a second? Okay. Mr. Allen?
Aye.
Mr. Latimer?
Aye.
Mr. Lehman?
Aye.
Mr. Serby?
Aye.
Mr. Geller?
Aye.
Mr. Rogers?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Okay, now, back to the resolution that ratifies execution of dispatch agreement with Westmoreland County. You already had Mr. Alger.
Aye.
Mr.
Aye.
Latimer, Mr. Lehman?
Aye.
Mr. Serby?
Aye.
Mr. Geller?
Is it too late to say something?
No, go ahead.
We haven't received a signature here from our town attorney. Do you intend to
No, sir.
review this? for-
I'm not able to approve it as to form.
Well, why are we pushing forward on this?
Okay.
I mean, there's no urgency. I mean, there is no urgency. We heard Larry mention just a few minutes ago,
Okay.
they're not gonna pull the plug on us. I mean, let's get it straight, let's get it right.
Okay.
Mr. Miller, I agree with you in what you're saying, but I do remind you that he's one member of the Board of Supervisors.
Well, all I'm saying is we got an attorney, our attorney cannot prove it as to form. I mean,
Right.
why? And we don't have attachment A.
Mr. Dell, I agree with you, but, you know, this original contract was approved by previous council, against the, recommendation of the town attorney, and it was still approved. I mean, if we had some guarantee, or, you know, I would have been more or less when everybody got the call on Friday evening to say, all right, let's do this for a month. You know, until she has time to look at the contract and make sure it's kosher. But I'm for whatever you guys want to do. I've said my piece to Mr. Robertson earlier. I'm done.
I just was under the impression that all this had been done since our last meeting, when we were ready to approve it, and now I find out that the town attorney hasn't had an opportunity to review it.
Oh, no, I'm reviewing.
Or you're not satisfied. I haven't heard your.
She hasn't seen the A attachment.
I haven't seen the A attachment, and I think there are, serious flaws in the document.
And this is, how does this, real quick, how does this compare to the previous contract we had with them?
I didn't like that one either.
I know, liking, but I mean, what was, so, okay.
Are there
What's
issues
wrong with this?
You know what, let's
What
back
do you,
this up.
you mean, what's wrong with this one?
What's wrong with the previous one?
Oh.
What's wrong with the previous one? Because the way I understood it, they were like kind, except for the price was different on this one.
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
And my recollection is that the other one was much lengthier.
Mm.
Okay.
To my recollection, I looked back, it was very similar. The number was different. This one is actually less than what we did last time. And as we talked, I also remember that one of the things that you were concerned with is we didn't have any language surrounding that number to kind of cement that. And I remember that being a concern as well.
But so I wonder if perhaps there was an intervening dispatch contract that wasn't sent to me, because the one I'm thinking of was longer than this one, and
Because this is done every 3 years, probably.
What I would like to also bring to the council's attention is a discussion that we had earlier. Our option B is $1 million of cost.
That's not the issue.
That's not really.
The issue is she's got to tell us that this thing works. We all know we've got to approve this process or this, but we've got to have the right language. I can't vote to sign it if Andre is saying she has a problem with it. Is that code wise or ordinance wise or what? I don't know.
I agree with that.
That's horrible. And yet we've already approved it verbally. I mean, this is horrible.
It is a huge disappointment that
Yes.
it was done this way. But it is, okay, so, and again, I don't think we have any issue of losing our dispatch services in the time being. And I think we were assured by at least by one supervisor. But stranger things have happened. So, with that, also, there's a clause in here that we can cancel this agreement.
6 months, sir.
6 months.
In
6 months.
With a 6 month notice, so we could do it tomorrow if we wanted to, and then have 6 months and we'll cancel out.
Yeah.
That's correct.
So, real quick, the issue was that Mr. Rosati was going out of town, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
It was leaving and said it had to be done by a certain date, is that
Correct. It had to be done by that Friday. It's on I think it's the 29th of June.
Yeah.
And it had to be done then. He was going out of town Monday on vacation for a week. We did make positive contact. Kathy was able to make positive contact with him that Friday.
Right.
Explained to him that there's no way we could get an emergency meeting with our council to go over, but we're fully acknowledging that this is something that we have to take care of. And he also expressed, and Ms. Flanagan, correct me if I'm wrong, he expressed that he understood that they gave it to us late and they gave us no notice as long as we had it to him that Monday.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, Mr. Sir.
On the actual, on your review, I assume you've read what we've received.
yes.
Okay. Are you going to be able to get that document to a point that you can support it?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know whether Westmoreland would be willing to make changes to it.
And, cause I guess my point is if, how much time are you gonna need to get the document to a point you can support it, and then we can schedule a special meeting to sign the thing real quick? But now I don't know if you're ever gonna get it to a point where you can recommend signing it and are willing to support it. I don't know what we do.
So we could approve it tonight and then have the 6 months that we can candidate. But I mean, what are we gonna do? We're not.
I'm just a little disappointed that we don't have a better handle on what our problems are with it, and whether we can get anywhere with it.
My problem is the contract is incomplete. I don't have the attachments. And one of the essential elements of the contract, as I indicated in my email, is offer acceptance, and meeting of the minds. And there's no definite number in there, or numbers going forward. I don't even know what you're agreeing to exactly. You're just kind of agreeing to pay whatever.
And you don't feel that this is something that you can, by talking to the county, you don't feel that's something you can get that content from them? Are they withholding that from you, or do you feel you can get that? The attachment, I have to believe we can get. I'm more concerned with some of the other verbiage you were talking about. Do you feel you can get that?
I don't know. I can say that I can request it.
I mean, I think what you're asking for is reasonable. Do you agree? So if it's reasonable, I can't understand why they would withhold it. I'm trying to do
Yes,
this.
ma'am.
Yeah.
They certainly won't withhold it without notice. I would recommend.
Can I ask you a question?
Okay, yes, sir.
When you got the information, you got it first, or did Mr. Quinn get it first?
The town manager got it first, and then he sent it to me, the afternoon of that Friday.
Okay, if he sent it to you that afternoon, why you put a stop to it then? Then we have to go through all this.
I did. I did.
He wouldn't have to call everybody to get approval. If you didn't approve it, then why should he have to call us to get approval?
I sent it, he was concerned about the short time frame and about the continuation of 911 services. And I said, well, I mean, you don't have any authority from council to sign it. I said, you know, I suppose you could call every council member and ask them if they agreed for you to sign it, and they could approve it retroactively. At the same time that afternoon, I sent correspondence to all of you indicating my concerns and that I could not approve it as to form. I also telephoned the county attorney.
Real quick, are we using state 911 funds for this anyway, indirectly? Aren't we?
So Mayor, I want to get double checked out, but it should be.
Some of it's funded, but a lot of it's county tax dollars and town tax
You know,
dollars.
there's only so much wiggle room, I think, for any kind of real shenanigans. If that makes sense to you at all?
Which would lead you to believe that we should be able to get a contract that's,
Yeah.
they said we're not the only people doing this.
No.
You know,
Every jurisdiction.
yeah, maybe they copied and pasted the thing and left half of it out, I don't know. I mean, it might be that simple, but it sure would be nice to have it fully.
I feel fairly confident in approving it, only because, I don't, again, this isn't a magic show on something. This is 9/11, it's our dispatch, it's our emergency.
We all agree and know the need, yes.
Yeah, you know, so, you know, I mean, this would probably be the one thing they don't wanna fool with, but at the same time, I'll certainly support whatever you folks wanna do, in terms of that, but, yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Art, did you get a call back from the county attorney?
No, sir.
Well, I mean, I don't know how the rest of it, I think we've got a consensus here, but, you know, I'm tired of the county ramming something down our throat at the last minute, and I think this probably needs to be worked out between our town attorney and the county attorney, before we approve it, and I'm more than willing to wait and hold my motion for approval.
I'm happy I can call him again tomorrow.
If that's, some wording for an amended resolution, I second that.
Yeah.
I don't know
Well,
if we
he's
need to
just
amend
withdrawing.
it, I just withdrawing my original motion.
He's withdrawing it, yeah.
I'm withdrawing the motion, so.
So you just move on to the,
Yes.
is seconded.
Mr. Levin.
I did.
Okay, so do you consent to withdraw? Okay, we'll just move on.
Okay. Alright, so you know what you'll reach out to them tomorrow?
Yes, sir.
Right.
Okay, resolution 29-18, which is the planning commission referrals. You've seen that. That came from Allison. It's quite extensive. We talked about it at the work session. Is there a motion to approve it?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Question?
We went through the first couple of them and then we said, let's just send the whole thing back. I had a question on, where this houseboat and barges thing originated from. What brought that up?
There is a potential buyer of a business, of a marina in town, and he is asking to put houseboats on the site to rent them as short-term nightly rentals.
Right. I just would say that houseboats are no different than a cabin cruiser, a motor yacht, or anything else that you can spend the night on. And I don't want to single out one thing if others possibly pertain. The biggest difference between these two items is a barge doesn't have a motor typically, and that's a fixed structure, and that VMRC has a total different position on that, and we may have to split this because of that. The houseboat is a power boat, and so I think if it's gonna be somebody's ability to rent out a power boat, then it needs to be that in lieu of just a houseboat, if that makes sense. Not, I agree that we're not really creating things here, but I just wanted to understand what it was
I
about.
think hopefully the planning commission will look into discern what's needed.
Just wasn't sure where it came from, is all.
Yeah, understand.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Okay.
I'm done. Thank you.
So there's a motion to approve. And a second. We're all done with discussion. Mr. Allen?
Aye.
Mr. Lyons?
Aye.
Dallas?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. So this will move to the planning commission. And we'll trade with them.
Could I ask for clarification on this? There's, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 issues
No,
issued. Is there a page missing?
hang on one second. Hang on a second. That's an administrative thing. I don't know. Is there, what are you talking about?
As far as, there's no page missing.
You're only,
Let us finish.
okay.
Yeah, let us finish this portion of it, and then we'll discuss that with you real quick. Okay.
Did we pass the complete, did we have the whole resolution in front of us when we passed it, Andrea? I think that's the question.
Yes.
It just, does it match what we had at the work session? Are you saying it doesn't?
You didn't have it at the work, you didn't have it at the work session, but that is the complete resolution.
I think the problem is we have 6 whereases, but only 3 numeric items. So something's missing.
No.
No?
It's 3 topics.
Okay.
She's written it as a resolution.
Well, the resolution says 6 up top.
6 issues, 10 of each planning commission.
There were 6.
The significant part of the resolution is the part that is the now therefore be it resolved. That's the meat of it. That's your actual motion.
We have the planning commission point out if they're different than what we have here. Could we ask her to?
What's that?
Could we ask the chairman of the planning commission to tell us what's missing if there's something missing?
That's fine.
Well, you've listed 6 issues here, and
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
but you've only then
Okay.
you're only referring 3 of them.
Okay, so she has the same thing we have. Yeah.
So what about the others issues?
Hang on one
The
second,
homestays,
Allison.
the vendors?
Okay, hang on one second.
Mr. Mayor, point of order.
Yes, ma'am.
We had this at the work session that citizens are just speaking
Okay, I
out.
know, okay.
I would encourage you to
Okay.
keep order.
Ms. Tolson, give us 1 second.
Mr. Mayor, the reason that there's 3 on the bottom, but it does state 6 on the top, is that the ones on the bottom were grouped
Okay.
into, they're
Okay.
grouped into categories.
Okay.
And there's 3 categories, but there's 6
Okay.
total items.
And they're all.
Yes.
Okay. You can, if you would, meet with Allison. Thank you. Room to business.
Yeah, we did.
Okay, new business. No new business. Okay, citizen input. Mr. Kennedy?
Steve Kennedy, 220 Boundary Street. I'd like to echo what a number of you up here said earlier about the performance on the 4th of July. Just outstanding. If I was a teacher and had to give a grade, it would have to be A+.
given the sheer numbers that you have to deal with and the heat, and nobody I heard, y'all talking about the numbers and the cars and everything else. I think that it was just commendable. Town manager out there riding around, checking on things. That was a breath of fresh air. It really was. Keep your people out there. God bless them. I'm telling you, with the heat that they had to put up with. This, not only that, the county was out there. I saw Mr. Trivett standing up there helping out. I'd like to thank him if he was still here. And Rob, outstanding. I mean, following after him, you couldn't even tell it than anybody in this town. And I think that's commendable. That says a lot about you guys and your dedication to your job. And I, as one citizen, really appreciate it. Now, one other thing, and it's just real briefly, I have noticed, and I think a number of other people have noticed, an increase of golf carts going up and down McKinney and 205. And I think it's only a matter of time, and I think it's a matter of education, because most of them are the rental carts. And people come to town, they're having a good time, I can't blame them. But I just don't think they've been educated enough to let them know that they're not belonging up there, unless the laws change. Since we instituted this thing, it's still 35 miles an hour there. And I certainly don't want to see anybody get hurt. But once again, thanks a lot for your job.
Thank you, too. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Steve. Mr. Kearns?
I got several comments. One has to do with the discussion that was earlier concerning dispatching. There is not a town in the Commonwealth of Virginia that handles their own dispatching. It is done by the county. Prime example, Culpeper, population closing in on 19,000, has a police force of 42. The county handles all the dispatching for the town. Now, a number of years ago, I talked about recreation, and I talked about it a number of times. It is time for the town to consider a Parks and Recreation Authority or Commission or whatever you want to call it. 40 years ago, a young organization was formed. It was formed by Bobby Duke Sr. and myself. It was called Colonial Beach Youth Athletics. And we ran recreation for our young people. I have a list of names that people that could serve on this commission, starting off with Coach Swope, Keith Dickerson, Earl Payton. They all played football for us at some point in time. They are giving back to the community. We have a young man that actually is running for council. His name is Pat I. He has taken over Scott Foster's job in running CBYAA. We have never asked for donations from the town or whatever. Our funding is based on concessions and registration. I also need to add our beloved town manager, because he's a big recreation person as well. And we're going to have a citizen coming back, a family from Fredericksburg, His name is Bobby Duke Jr. He also needs to be considered for a position on this recreation thing. It needs to be in place before the facility starts. I thank you.
Thank you, Walter. Anybody else out there tonight? Jay?
Good evening. Jay Jarvis, 225 Boundary Street. I just found out something just this week. I used to always follow Walter up here, and I always used to say, boy, it's tough to follow the grouchy old man. I found out I'm 6 years older than he is. Sorry, Walter. A couple of kudos right off the bat. I'm not going to reiterate very well the 4th of July, how the 4th of July went. I live on a main street, in and out, ingress and egress. Yeah, we still had traffic at 12:08, but I'll tell you what, most everything was flowing, and I didn't see a lot of upset people as I had in the past. And I think this time we had more people in town than we've had for several years. So it was a job well done. While I'm still on that, Mr. Murphy, outstanding kudos to the guys on cleaning the beach and the roads. They did an outstanding job. I'll come back on that in a second. Then the next kudo, Rob, is this is from a neighbor. Told me, and you knew I'd be speaking tonight. He said, make sure they know about how well the repaving is going. Washington Avenue is outstanding. We know that was an M&M paving, we think. Now the next step is we'd like to see some lines, markings on it. The other point, another kudo, I pointed out last week we had some water leaks in town. I didn't realize it, just like tonight, I came in late from Northern Virginia, right to the meeting here. Rob, they had it fixed the day of the meeting, so that was fixed. And the one on Garfield is fixed. And we're talking some major leakage, and so that's some dollar savings to the water department. So job well done on those two. I called Mr. Dare, I took your advice, I called in 8 sewer leaks. They have been repaired. There's 2 minor seepages, it's none that I would call in. So that was done. Now let me get into some serious discussion here. Law enforcement. And I know we had an outstanding weekend, but we had Chief Hawkins standing out in the middle of Washington parking cars. And things are going good. We had the chief out there parking cars. I, riding around on my bicycle, coming down Irving, noticed two families on the park in front of that park on Irving, and that's on the beach, cooking on the beach, or cooking in the park. 2 more places were cooking, one down just in front of the swing set, and the other one down on the end of Colonial Avenue. Did I call them in? No. Story behind that. Last year, I noticed 3 people with fires on the beach. The beach. Now, we're not talking about Mexican fishing village. That's another story. But on the main beach, I called them in, dispatch, not working. On 3 of the calls, only 1 showed up. And that was when I was sitting in the information booth, and they were cooking down on the beach, or not on the beach, just off the boardwalk on the beach. That no one ever showed up. I called one in that was on the boardwalk, where the boardwalk ends below the motel there. There was somebody out there cooking. They were up on they had a pickup truck, and on the back of the pickup truck with a cooler. So, did I call them in? I saw them. How many police did we have on bicycles on the 4th of July? I didn't need to call them in. They're not enforcing the law.
Now, my cleanup, 4 days a week, I spend about 4 hours on the beach, and I get down and get all of the, what I'm more concerned about is the plastic that gets out in the river, and the colored straws from McDonald's that float out into the bay. That's disastrous to the mammals in the bay and in the ocean. So I try and get as much cleaned up 4 days a week as I can. And on the 5th, beach looked beautiful, like I said, outstanding. Now I'm going along the water's edge. I found a 5th barbecue pit. This was behind the stand at the American Legion. Charcoal was just thrown at the water's edge. The second one was on Pebble Beach. I call it Pebble Beach, the one in front, from the riverboat to Colonial Avenue. There was a big pit, big pile of burning charcoal, not burning, had burned charcoal right on the beach. Down on this side, right by the riverboat, there was one. In front of the swing set, I found charcoal out on the beach. That one was, they poured it on the beach and covered it. And this is, as a safety engineer, I'm telling you, this is dangerous. You don't dump charcoal on the beach. I picked up 115, in excess of 115, I put it on Facebook, it's on, anybody can see it, of the bricks I picked up just along the section between the pier and Colonial Avenue. 115 charcoal bricks, either floating or I dug up out of the sand, because you can imagine coming down with a nice white towel, throwing it down on the beach, and you put it on top of burning, already burned charcoal that was covered with sand. So I go back to what I said before. We need better law enforcement. There is a law against charcoal. It was obvious. 4 people I saw barbecuing. I'm on a bicycle, and how many bicycles did we have in uniform? So I'm going to look next month to see how many. Recommendation. I'm going to see how many citations we got for barbecue and fires on the beach and that kind of thing. Now, let me go back to take a step backward. The parking and parking meters on parking lot in the town. I recommend we drop back 7 years. It was 7 years ago. We had a meter maid in town, and she went and checked all of your meters, all the parking, went down the street to see. In those days it was meters, but nowadays they can look at the windshield. I can guarantee you better than 40% of the cars parked along where they're supposed to park don't have tickets in there. I can tell you there's a whole bunch. I didn't go and count them. That in the main parking lot. If we get our meter made back, because I know the police officers, 2 of them I spoke to, they don't like walking out and giving tickets. So get the meter made back. The second thing I would recommend is take a relook at the school resource officer. And the reason I say that is that he also could start your police auxiliary. Do we have a police auxiliary anymore?
Yes, sir.
That'd be a good question to ask, because this, if you did, could be the people that are parking the cars or doing the menial things that you don't have Chief Hawkins out there parking cars with no water either. That's another thing you might want to look at, because I went back and brought water down to some of the people out there.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Just so you know, real quick, there was a snafu with the parking arrangement at the very last minute, and Captain Hawkins was gracious enough to assist with parking cars. As far as law enforcement and the grills, Captain, maybe when you do your briefing with them next year, whoever, the Sheriff's Department needs to know as well that we enforce the grill ordinance as well.
Make sure they're not our boardwalk vendors.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and then we really need to, if you could look at the grill, the laws for the grills, because I'm confused. If they're not on the beach, then they should be able to utilize a grill, right? If they're going on the back of the truck, they should be able to utilize the grill, I would think.
As per before, they could not do it in
Okay.
proximity, and they got the definition of proximity to the beach and the road and all
Okay,
that.
that's- And then another thing that the council can consider through a little bit of research from you folks, is a lot of beaches, what they've done is set up identified areas only where you can go. You actually go there, you grill your meat, and then you take it back to where you.
Our old bathhouse, we
Yeah.
had grills out front. So
Exactly.
where you-
Yeah, so that, they do that in some jurisdictions to alleviate that, and they use gas, by the way, they don't use charcoal, so that you don't have the charcoal on the beach.
Yep.
Another point of order. I will research that with planning and zoning, and we'll come up with a presentation for you. I'd just like to note that if we do find a solution set with the RSO with the school, that can also foster the meter maid, so the school doesn't need them during our peak season. We could then flip that individual into parking, which will further free up, because our current police force is tapped out.
Okay.
So thank you.
Thank you very much.
And that was part two of what I was gonna say about our resource officer. Very good, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I just have one quick comment so we can get out of here, but, and this is for the council's knowledge as well as for the citizens that are here. You may have seen a lot of bikes on the boardwalk, but that is a town ordinance. The only person that can enforce that ordinance is a town police officer. The county cannot enforce it. Every year we have Charles County, King George County come over here with bikes. They can't enforce it. Only the town police can enforce the town ordinance. So I just want to clarify that. Again, and I've heard the mayor say it, and I encourage all of you, it takes a village, folks. It doesn't take 10 police officers on a day that we had with almost 40,000 people in this town. If you see something, call it in. I mean, they'll get to it. I'm not gonna say it will be, expediently, because they may have a fight call to go to or something more pressing, but I know, I worked that beach for 3 or 4 years, and unless you're out of the car, and the focus for law enforcement that day is traffic direction, getting people in here safely and getting people out of here safely. I'm not saying that gives them the right to disregard town ordinances, but you gotta call it in for them to respond. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. That's it for public comment, okay? Is there a motion to go into closed session?
Is there a motion to go into closed meeting pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A1 for the discussion of the performance of the town manager?
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Mr. Allen?
Aye.
Mr. Martin?
Aye.
Mr. Layton?
Aye.
Mr. Serby?
Aye.
Mr. Geller?
Aye.
Mr. Rogers?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. And I just want to be candid, this is not a punitive issue at all. This is simply something that the council needs to discuss.